The saying goes that behind every great man there stands a great woman. That is surely true in motorsports, where wives and girlfriends are often the rocks on which careers are built, tending to family and the business of living during the long days when a driver is away plying his trade. Rarely do we get to meet them until today. Welcome to Kart Today at the Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. For the first time ever, the FedEx Champ cars will visit the state of Texas. Welcome to Kart Today at the Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Bob Barsha. It is hot and muggy once again here in Houston, Texas, but the show will go on. And we have a very different edition of Kart Today for you. In previous shows, we've taken you around the racetrack, through the paddock, met the car owners and the drivers of the Kart FedEx Championship Series. In the next 30 minutes leading up to the command to start engines here in Houston, we're going to meet the women behind those drivers, the wives and girlfriends of Kart. They're a great group of people, and I know you're going to enjoy hearing from them. Let's begin with Gary Gerould.
Bob, we begin with one of the great ladies who is making the final farewell tour with her husband, Debbie Rahal, the wife, of course, of Bobby. And Bobby's down to his 3 final races of a brilliant Champ Car career. Everywhere you go, Debbie, there's all these honors and awards and command performances, so to speak, for the entire family. Is it taking any kind of an emotional toll from your standpoint?
You know, the beginning of the year, I felt good about this. I still feel good about him retiring because he's doing it on his terms instead of being forced through injury or anything like that. And he's very happy about his decision. But now that it's down to a finite number of races, I am feeling much more emotional than I thought I would. And I think it's going to be a big Valium race at Fontana. But I'm happy for him. I'm ready to have more time with the children as a family as well.
Speaking of the children, Jared, one of your sons, I know, had a special present. You've got that in your hand today. Tell us about this.
I just want Jared to know that the 4-leaf clover he picked at the barn last weekend for his father will be in his father's pocket for the race. So, Jared, if you bring him luck, it's yours.
All right, we'll talk more with Debbie and others later on. Let's go to Jan Beekes right now.
Well, Gary, we have a fitness buff here in our presence, of course. That is Leslie Andretti. And Leslie, is it true on your very first date with Michael, he got pulled over for speeding?
Yes, it is true.
Now, what happened when he said to the policeman, hey, I'm Michael Andretti?
Well, he didn't actually do that. I think that he really thought he might be able to get off, and it was one of the tickets that he hasn't been able to get off on. So the cop didn't care. He just gave him the speeding ticket. He said he would knock it down a few notches, but that was it. He got a ticket.
Okay, well, stick around. We'll talk to you a bit more a bit later. Now, a guy who's famous for speeding is Danny Sullivan.
Well, thanks very much. Now, I'm also with a very fast lady, Lisa Tracy. You've been known to go quick, and you also met your husband at a go-kart track. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, I did meet him in Phoenix at a go-kart track.
Now, you've come out on the trail, so to speak, on the kart trail a couple of years ago. Is there anything, any surprises, anything that caught you by surprise that you didn't expect when you came out here?
Well, I probably thought it was less work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of traveling. You're not home very often. It's not as glamorous as I really intended it to be.
Well, I'm sure everything's going to be great for you all this weekend. Your guys going a lot better. Bob?
All right, thanks very much, Danny. We have a lot more to come here on Kart Today. Before we brought the women on, we asked them about the personal cars they drive and how fast they've gone. Several of them took the Fifth Amendment, but these ladies were willing to admit that they have gone very quickly. We'll talk with them later on about why they ever had to be going so fast, especially Shelly Unser. For a kiss in victory lane, all a part of life on the Kart FedEx Championship Trail. And when you're in victory lane, it just doesn't get any better than that. Welcome back to Kart Today. I am joined not by wives, but 3 girlfriends of prominent drivers here on the Kart FedEx Championship. With me right here is Lori Reynolds, who is engaged to Robbie Gordon with the MCI car. Okay. Candy Townsend dates Alex Barron with Dan Gurney's All-American Racers. I am so way behind on my social card. And down on the end, Jennifer Lee, who is seeing Tony Kanaan, our rookie leader. Now, Jennifer, I think you're the newest member of the Kart family, so let me ask you first. What do you think of life on the Kart Tour as you've experienced it just thus far?
So far, it's been very interesting, very exciting. Takes some getting used to, I guess. Went to Tony's first appearance the other night at Honda, so that was interesting to see him work with the people and do the autographs and things. So getting used to it.
I'd like to ask all of you, and you can all answer this when your turn comes. What do your friends and family think when you tell them I'm dating a racing driver? I'll save you for last for Lori, because I know you and Robbie have known each other a long time.
Yes, we have.
Let's begin with you, Candy.
Well, my mom, she kind of questioned me a little bit. She asked me why, and I didn't quite know what to say. I just told her that it shouldn't matter, you know. Your parents always wish that you could be with a doctor or something, and I always seem to find the ones that have the dangerous jobs. And I'm interested in it as well, so, and she knows that.
And how about you, Jennifer?
My mom really likes Tony. She met him for the first time. He's got a great personality. He's so fun to be around. Great guy. So the fact that he's a race car driver just kind of, you know, adds a little excitement to the whole thing, but he's very sweet.
Now you, Lori, I know, as I mentioned before, that you and Robbie have known each other a long time. Tell me how this has all come about.
Well, I used to be the gate girl back at Saddleback Racetrack in Orange, and that's where we're both from. And my family owned the racetrack, so Robbie used to come in every weekend and race there with his family. So my family is very well known with his family, so we grew up together. So actually everybody's really happy that we're together.
How has all of the traveling that's involved with the life of a racing driver? I know these guys are on the road all the time. When they're not racing, they're testing. How is life on the road?
Life on the road is really fun for me. This is the first time that I've really been able to travel and see all the different places, so I'm really having a good time.
For me, I have a full-time job, so I don't get to travel near as much, but the races that I do go to, I enjoy them a lot, and I find it very interesting, but I don't think that I could do it all the time.
Yeah. And Jennifer?
I agree. I also have a full-time job, so that does make it pretty trying at times. This weekend specifically, flew in Friday night, flying out Sunday night. That makes it tough, and it's a little hard, but fun nonetheless. So.
And what is the worst part about dating a racing driver?
The worst part?
Uh-huh. Now you get as personal as you want to.
I guess driving on the regular streets with them.
Oh, yeah?
Passenger seat.
I have to agree. I like to be in control.
Let me ask you, do you have any superstitions? I mean, the last time you see your guy before he gets into the race cars, he's going to do it just a few minutes here in Houston. Do you have any little regime you go through?
No, not really. Just wish him good luck, and that's about it. I have faith in the way that he races because I've known him for so long, so I don't really get that scared.
I try not to think about that. I trust his driving skills. I have confidence in him. And there's a lot of respectful drivers out there, and it's just not ever a thought that try to play into my head.
And Jennifer?
Now me, I'm a little bit new to the whole thing, so I do have a little bit of a superstition. I like to keep his helmet very close to me, kiss it right as he goes across the start-finish line at first. So I'm sure after a while I'll probably get a little bit more comfortable, but I definitely have faith in his driving, of course, but a little bit of a superstition just yet, so.
Well, we want to thank you all for joining us. You all look nice and cool and calm. I am absolutely sweating. We are under a severe weather warning here in Houston, but the show will go on, and the race will be great. We'll be back in a moment. Here's a look at where some of the wives and girlfriends of the CART Tour work. Jennifer Lee works for the Columbus Dispatch newspaper in Ohio. Debbie Rahal works for charities. An aerobic instructor is Michael Andretti's wife, Leslie. Chris Mears and Lisa Tracy also have careers of their own. We'll be back with more CART Today in just a moment.
Might be having our few first sprinkles of rain. Could be an interesting afternoon. Now we have another trio of ladies with us here. We already spoke briefly with Leslie Andretti. To her right is Jeanette Herta, of course, wife of Brian Herta, just coming off that victory at Laguna Seca. And then Brenda Niels, who describes herself as wife in training for Richie Hearn. And I've got to ask you, Brenda, you have official duties here at the racetrack. What are those?
Yes, I do actually. During the race, I communicate with Mark, who shows Richie the signboard and shows him how many laps are left during the race and what position he's in and that. I also do it during practice and qualifying, so keeps me busy.
Okay, Jeanette, how about yourself? Any official duties during race time?
No official duties during race time.
Do you ever want to talk to Brian on the radio?
No, not at all.
Now tell me, is it true that you met Brian when your mother was racing with Brian in go-karts?
Yes, we met at Willow Springs. Brian and I met there. He raced against my mother.
Did she beat him?
No, she did not.
Good thing.
Yes.
Now, Leslie, I've got to ask you, we mentioned you're a fitness buff. You've been in fitness competitions. Today is going to be absolutely grueling on these drivers. High humidity, high heat. What do you tell Michael as far as what you do to get ready for this race?
Well, I just tell him to drink a lot, stay really well hydrated, and actually we do a little bit of training beforehand to try and prepare for the heat, but there's nothing that you can do to prepare for this kind of heat. It's hot.
Okay, well, this is out to all of you. Like, what do you like to do for fun? We talk about racing, we talk about your husbands all the time. When you're not racing, what do you enjoy to do, Brenda?
We really enjoy to go out to the lake. We have a lake real close to us, Lake Mead, just outside of Las Vegas. And we have a boat, and sometimes we get some jet skis and we go out. So we have a great time on the lake in any of our spare time.
Jeanette?
We have a lake nearby, and we have a few wave runners. We have fun during the week doing that.
Now, before we move on to Leslie, tell me, your daughter's going to be a year old, I believe, tomorrow.
Yes.
Now, what kind of challenge is that, bringing her to the racetrack and doing that as well?
Well, I try to bring my mother with me to help because she is very active, runs around everywhere.
Okay, and Leslie, what do you like to do for fun when you're not at the racetrack?
Actually, we have a lake too.
Man, this is all water sport
Actually,
group.
Mike's parents have a lake, and the family goes up there, and we bring all our friends, and we do wave runners and boats and just a lot of water sports. And in the summer and in the winter, we do snowmobiling and stuff, so it's pretty cool.
I think we're going to have some water sports today. Looking behind us here, it's a good thing that we're undercover. It is coming down, cats and dogs. We're going to have a great race today. Now, tell me, driving home with your husband or boyfriend after a bad race on the way to the airport, what is that like?
You just stay out of their way, and you don't talk to them unless they want to talk, and then you agree with whatever they have to say, good or bad, or
Do they ever let you guys drive?
No.
Never. I don't
No?
think I've ever driven Mike anywhere, ever.
Really? None of you? Never driven the car when husband or boyfriend was with you? He's the man all the time?
Oh, you mean our regular street car or the race car?
No, street car.
Oh, no. I drive sometimes,
Okay, so we have the one exception. Now, what are you going to do in these kind of conditions as far as Jeanette and Leslie with no official duties? Is it the day to stay in the motorhome?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you, ladies. Brenda, I know you're going to be getting wet because you're going to be making those radio calls.
Is it okay if I mention that my stepfather had to have emergency surgery this weekend, and I haven't been able to talk to him yet, and I just want to wish him my best and let my mom know also that I'm with her and thinking about both of them this weekend and all.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll do that. Well, the starting grid for today's race, I should say, here in a minute, is going to be a water sport, like we said. Greg Moore on the pole, Frank Heady. As we go through the field, you can see it's very, very tight indeed. These guys in the dry qualify extremely close together. What's going to happen in the wet? We're going to find out here shortly this afternoon. We'll be back with more Wives in a moment.
Of this unique program today, I have the distinct honor of being along with three wives of past champions in the series. I really don't think they need much of an introduction. Debbie Rahal is right here on my immediate right. Shelley Unser, Chris Mears. Rick Mears, of course, no longer driving in this series. He's retired, but he's still active. He works for the Penske team. I think everybody knows about all the championships that these drivers have won. Ladies, let's talk a little bit about what it's like to be the wife of a champion and the pressure of a championship chase. Is there anything like it in the rest of your life that applies as much pressure as that defining moment? Debbie, let's start with you.
I remember for a few years I went down to Bobby and Michael Andretti, and I think the pressure is tremendous the closer you get to the end. And I remember going down literally to the last race a couple of times, and just there is nothing really like it, other than the emotion you feel for your own children for something.
And it's difficult because you're all such good friends, but when you're in a heated battle like that, but I would rather have a championship, the pressure of a championship, than the pressure of, like right now, you know, struggling with a new car and not winning races. I'll take the pressure of a championship any day.
I agree. The only thing with me and my career with Rick is the fact that what was really pressure filled for me was when Rick had to qualify on an oval, because he was always considered to be one of the ones to beat, and that was
always.
And I knew that he was really, really nervous, even though he may not have shown it outwardly.
So he was feeling the pressure.
Oh, absolutely, and I knew that, so that was tough for me.
But you tend to be, I find that when Bobby's under pressure, I'm the emotional one. He tends to be very, focused, and I'm the one that accepts all of the emotions. So do you find it that way too, that you're the one that can show it and you know how they feel, but...
And that's why I learned that pace walk of mine.
Oh, yeah,
Exactly.
How about competitive instincts? We know that your husbands are competitive on the racetrack. How about you as individual? How competitive are you, Debbie?
Well, I think one of the worst years, Bobby calls me the all-time Little League mother, but in any case, I think one of the worst years in racing was a great year, but when Shelley and I were teammates, because actually the three of us are very good friends, probably closer than most of the other wives. Right. Not just because we're the old ladies, right? But that was very hard. Yeah, there we were a minute ago. But I think because it was our husbands and we're such good friends, and we were teammates, and it was hard. It was a little strain on our friendship.
Yeah,
I
it was a strain. I enjoyed it much better when they were not teammates.
And she didn't feel guilty throwing voodoo at us.
Yeah. or on a team, on teams you're always, do we have the same equipment? Do we get the same thing? Yeah. And if it's a team that's not as well funded, it can be
and you become suspicious.
Yeah.
And that's hard to live with. So.
It's job security with the teammate.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean that's the thing that adds the pressure.
Is it still fun after these years? Because all three of you have been involved in this for a long time now. Is it fun?
Jump right in there, girl.
It's great for me because I don't have to worry as much, and that's something that Debbie obviously has.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that, with that waking up on Sunday morning with a knot in your stomach and that kind of thing, wondering what's going to happen and how your luck's going to hold out. Don't ask me the couple more races. It was a little emotional, but
now what Debbie has to worry about, since Rick started the Indy Lights team, Team Mears 2 years ago with his brother, I think next year what she's going to have to worry about, instead of her husband being out on the track, is if she sees, God forbid, but there is a chance that there's going to be an accident, hopefully very, low key, but she's going to think, okay, I hope the insurance is paid for.
And then our son is already trying to get Rick Mears to give him a ride in the Indy Lights.
Right.
There we go. I just have a feeling that we're going to be around for a while.
And then my son wants to get in cars, Graham, so it's going to just come full circle.
Let me ask you quickly now. We've seen your husbands go fast. Do you drive fast when you get in a passenger car?
Is Bobby watching
Have you?
this?
No, Bobby's not watching. Are you a good driver?
Is our insurance company?
I'm a very safe driver. I don't think any of us can afford to, one, be drinking and driving and out there, but two, go too quickly in case you get a ticket because you know somebody's going to make something of it. But sorry, Bob, I had taken the Boxster out at 90 miles an hour.
I heard that Shelley had a Mercedes up over 150. Is that right?
It is right.
Kilometers? Or?
Al's not watching this, right?
Al's not watching.
Okay. That is correct. But it was an emergency situation, and I needed to get to Santa Fe quickly. I would not recommend it, but yeah.
Chris, do you jump in on this? Have you driven a car fast?
I drive fast, but I don't drive really, really fast. I really don't.
Well, good for you.
I try to be
I drive fast, but I don't drive really, really fast.
Listen, I'm sorry that we don't have more time because this is just getting to be too much fun. Ladies, thank you very, very much. We appreciate your efforts and your loyalties through the years. And from a personal standpoint, believe me, folks, you can't find three better representatives than these three women right here. They are terrific. Let's go back to Bob.
All right, thanks, Gary. And we add our thanks to the women of CART for joining us here today on CART Today. Coming up next over on ABC Sports, live flag-to-flag coverage of the Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. Coming up next here on ESPN2, today at the races, thoroughbred racing news for you. We're headed for ABC Sports for round 17 of the FedEx Championship. For all of us here, I'm Bob Barsha. Tune in. The GP of Houston coming up on ABC. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.
Some guys, something happens and all of a sudden they become winners. And once they've won that race and once they understand how to win and what it is to win, then they're generally unstoppable. And I think that's what will happen with Brian.
Light on fuel on scuffed tires. Coming to the scene of the pass in 1996. Zerate looks down the inside.
Look at Brian, says, hey, you're not going to do that again.
Zanardi on the power off the corner. Squirming under acceleration to try to catch Brian Herta, but he will not be able to.
I have to say, I'm so glad that it was Alex at the end of the race there pushing me because, I knew he's the best right now. And I knew if I had the best pushing me and we could pull this one off, maybe we could put some of those demons to rest.
I'm just thrilled. I'm thrilled for him personally. I'm thrilled for the team.
might think that America's biggest, baddest open-wheeled series and America's boldest, brassiest state in the contiguous 48 would be old neighbors, but they are not. Welcome to the debut of the Kart FedEx Championship Series in Texas, the Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. You also think they'd throw us a nice, bright, sunny day for the race, but sadly it hasn't worked out that way. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Bob Barsha. We are in a temporary hold here on the streets of Houston while we get this situation under control. We have just experienced our third heavy downpour in the last 4 hours. That has the track very wet. That has the teams in a condition where they're trying to get the cars ready to go race. The show will go on, we are assured, but it's going to take a few minutes. So that gives us an opportunity to bid you welcome. Now, just like Texans, racing drivers have big dreams. And as you just saw, Bryan Herta lived his dream 3 weeks ago at Laguna Seca, California, winning his first ever victory on the Kart FedEx Championship Series. Before him, Alex Zanardi clinched his second PPG Cup, and that helped him raise his stature in the international motorsports world and achieve his dream of returning to Formula One, where we now know he will drive for Williams Grand Prix Engineering beginning in 1999. But there is still much to be accomplished in the remainder of the 1998 FedEx Championship Series season. Lots of dreams still to be achieved, and one of them might be winning the first ever visit for these cars to Texas. It's going to be a spectacular event. The rain has now stopped. Let me bring in former kart champion and my season-long colleague, Danny Sullivan. Danny, what is this rain going to do to these drivers?
Well, it makes a very big problem for them because they have to decide a lot of things. First of all, do I change the setup on the car? How much do I change the setup on the car? Because it's now stopped raining, but is it going to dry out? And if I'm in the back of that pack, let me tell you something, with gray walls and a lot of spray, it's going to be a big problem at the start of this race. Strategies are changing. This is a very tough time on these drivers. And let's not forget one other thing. None of them have any experience around this track in the wet, so it's going to be tough.
We have seen speeds upwards of 180 miles an hour on the long Austin Avenue backstretch. This is going to be interesting. Let's pick up the story now with Gary Gerould.
Well, Bob and Danny, we've grabbed one of the youngest drivers, a rookie in this series, Tony Kanaan. And they're just, Tony, talking about all the variables that have been thrown up in the air here. And you're standing here just grinning because I got a feeling you love this.
Well, I love rain. To be perfectly honest, I always race in the rain in Brazil and in Italy as well. So I'm very exciting. It's going to be my first race and the Champ cars and the rain. So I'm really looking forward to do it. And I think we can do very well.
Let's talk a little bit about what you do now to handle the handling characteristics. How much do you think Steve Horn and the team will be changing the car from when you last drove it in the warm-up this morning?
We're not going to change the car at all. We're going to just give a little bit more aero, rear wing and front wing, because it's going to be dry. It looks like, you know, the rain stops, and for sure at the end of the race we're going to have a dry race. So we're not going to change the car. We're just going to go forward in the rain, and we have to be careful the first corner because it's going to be tough for everybody. The spray is going to be so bad for the guys who is in the back. So
you have talked about in the past, you know, your love for driving in the rain in Brazil. Now, in the Indy Lights series, when you were coming up before graduating the Champ car, did you ever have a chance to run in the rain there?
No, we had Portland one time, but we started and we did 2 laps and, you know, get dry. So I never, for sure, in America, I never raced in the rain before.
And here you are now on a brand new street circuit where nobody has very much time. Does the fact that everybody is kind of in the same boat, how important is that, I guess, with a short amount of preparation time and now the rain on top of it?
Well, for me, it's, you know, I think it's very important because I'm, like you said, I'm the rookie, so they have a lot more experience than me. And this kind of conditions, new racetrack and sometimes raining, give me a little bit more, not advantage, I would say, but I will say I will be in the same step than them. So let's try to give a hard times for the old guys.
Yeah. I think this kid, he wants to go out there right now. You know, he has to row that race car around the track. Hey, have fun, pal.
Thank you, I will. And you guys are going to have a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, we're going to have fun watching him. Let's go to Jan Bikas.
Well, of course, Gary, one of the tricks right now is trying to find a way to get out of the rain, and both Mario and Michael Andretti have done a pretty good job at that. We just heard from Tony Kanaan, and he says he's going to stay with a dry setup because he says the track will dry. What do you think, Michael?
He's probably right. I mean, the way the shower's been coming in and out, I think, we'll definitely probably have a dry segment at least of the race.
Have you talked to Mario? Let's ask Mario. What do you think? Obviously, the two of you talk about it, and then he talks with the team. If it stays the way it is, would you change the car?
Well, they don't do that much changing anyway from wet to dry these days. But I would not touch the car, quite honestly, and just put the wets on and then ride with that. But again, it's you know, it's a call that anybody can make either way. You not exactly know which way it's going to go, because even if you look at the weather map, you know, you don't know which cloud is going to dump and where. When you get scattered showers, exactly that, just scattered, and we may get it, may not.
Now, of course, this whole track and the concept, there was a lot of consultation with Newman Haas and with you. And one of the things they did, Michael, was they took the crown out of the road, because normal streets have a big crown for drainage. But now it's raining. What's that going to do?
I don't know. I haven't been out there. I mean, there may be more standing water for sure, but, you know, we'll have to wait and see. I think it's fairly smooth, which is good, but, you know, hopefully there won't be a whole lot of puddles. I don't know what the status is, because I haven't been out in a wet track yet. So.
Okay, let's do something here, because we spoke with your wife earlier. Let's, Leslie, why don't you come in here? We had some fun on our ESPN2 show leading up to the race, and we talked about on your very first date that he got pulled over for speeding. And Michael, what was going through your mind at that time?
Oh boy, you know, I tried to be nice to the policeman, but I still got the ticket.
Now, she has been involved in fitness competitions, aerobic instructor, and so on. On a day like today, high humidity, I mean, do you two confer and figure out what you got to do to be in the best shape?
Well, I think it's just training. You know, I think, you know, everyday training, just hitting it hard with the aerobic side of it, and then also the weight training. I think it all adds up, and it just allows you to handle heat and other things because you're in better shape, and that's what we've been doing. We work out together every day, and she pushes me hard.
So who lifts more weight, Leslie?
He does.
Now, we talked earlier, just between some other wives and yourself, about that ride sometimes back to the airport when it hasn't been such a good day. What goes through your mind at that stage, just hanging on for dear life?
Yeah, and I just, you know, whatever he says is right. It's fine.
You got it. Michael Andretti's the man. Let's go find and talk to the other man, Tommy Kendall.
Well, yesterday during the qualifying show, I was saying how after a week in the booth with Danny and Bob, the confines, I could not wait to get back out close to the action. Well, I am soaked right now, but I am sticking with that story, because close to the action is where I want to be. Behind me, you see the straightaway. It has stopped raining, but the shiny spots that you see is actually standing water. That's where, when it rains, it's just going to get heavier and heavier. With the bad side, the drawback of no crown is that the water will not drain. And Tony Kanaan, as much as he likes to race in the rain, there's nothing you can do about standing water, because that lifts the car aquaplaning. You've all heard the term, literally out of contact with the road. And I don't care how talented you are, you're going for a ride when the car's not touching the ground. Having said that, the things that these guys are looking for that you might not take into consideration normally, the paint on the roads, the manhole covers, all these things that change grip. You're going to see guys looking for different parts on the track, trying unorthodox lines. Usually you build a book of those kind of things when you've raced at a track before at Elkhart Lake, you know, the outside through the carousel, et cetera, et cetera. None of those guys have any of that information. Usually when you have a rain race, also, you've seen it maybe in a practice session. Here, sometimes they'll give you an extra pace lap, but I have a feeling they're going to have to do all the looking on those pace laps and be ready to go green. Having said that, also, I knew when I could win a race in the dry, no matter how much I like the rain, I didn't want rain, because you're not immune to the mistakes. You take more chances. Even if you feel strong in the rain, it can really ruin the day in a hurry, and no one's immune to the higher risk. However, if you don't think you have what it takes to get the job done in the dry, that's when you're doing the rain dance, and it's kind of a crapshoot, but at least you've got a shot. Bob?
All right, thanks very much, Tommy Kendall, otherwise known as a one-man debate here on our ABC Kart team. We will go racing here as soon as we get a little of that standing water removed. What a weekend we've been having at the Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. Stay put. Grand Prix of Houston, the inaugural visit for the Champ Cars to the streets of Texas. A huge crowd on hand. Now keep in mind, these people have sat through 2 major rainstorms in the last 90 minutes or so, and they have not budged. The promoters were expecting to reach a crowd figure over the weekend of 150,000, and I'll bet they're very close, including a big contingent of fans from Mexico supporting the 2 Mexican drivers in today's race, one of whom is standing by with Gary Gerould.
And as it turns out in this instance, Bob, we're sitting by out here, and everybody's looking up over their shoulders, checking out the weather conditions. We see little breaks and bits of blue. Adrian Fernandez, we were talking about all the supporters that are here. Your home country, Mexico, not that far away, of course, from Texas. And I understand that over the last 2 days, you have spent in excess of 6 hours signing autographs. That must be so uplifting to know that these people are here backing you.
It is fantastic feeling. You know, everybody from Mexico and the people that live here in Houston
from Mexico. It's been supporting us big time, not just me, but also Michelle Jordan, and it's just a pleasure, and we hopefully want to give them a good result today.
Well, you start in the 12th position. That's kind of almost mid-pack. It's going to be wet, obviously. It's going to be a lot of spray and one thing or another. How much does it bother or concern you?
You know, it's the same for everybody, but I think this race is in anybody's race if the condition changes like it's happening right now.
And, of course, you're still in that battle for second place overall in the point standing, because the man who ends up second is going to get a $500,000 bonus. Feeling any pressure?
Well, it's just more the second place than the $500,000, to be honest. It will be great for my career. So well, we're going for it.
Well, we wish you well.
Thank you.
Adrian Fernandez. Jan?
Well, Gary, there's been a major announcement this weekend from Walker Racing, so let's go to the source. Derek Walker, what's the announcement?
Well, it's good news. We're running the second car next year. We've got a Japanese driver, Naoki Hattori, is our driver. So we're going to expand the team, so it's good.
And Naoki, of course, comes from the Indy Light Series. We'll turn to your driver, Gilles de Fernan. Gilles, he is known as being a great test driver. How will that help you?
I think he's obviously going to help the team quite a bit. You know, he's probably going to take some of the testing burden out of my back, but I know he's a very experienced driver. He's Japanese Formula 3000 champion, you know, Japanese touring car champion. He has many titles and a wealth of experience that he's bringing to the team. So I think it's a great choice by Derek.
Okay, let's now switch gears to today. It's not raining at the moment, but what's going through your mind? You were fastest in the warm-up.
I want to go racing. I can't wait for it to start. I mean, the car is very good. You know, we have been working on the Valvoline Cummins car ever since the weekend started to get better traction. This morning, the car was very good. We were able to set the fastest time. Rain or shine, I want to go racing. I hope Wally makes his mind up soon enough so we can get on with it.
Well, we saw a smile from you. We also saw one from Tony Kanaan. Looks like the Brazilians like the rain. Bob?
All right, thanks, Jan. We will be back to the 4th largest city in America, glittering Houston, where hopefully we are close to the command to start engines.
The Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. This ABC Sports presentation brought to you by Firestone, America's tire since 1900. Unnet from MCI World Cup, your one connection to the world. American Honda, proud sponsor of the 1998 FedEx Championship Series. And FedEx. FedEx, be absolutely sure.
Great stars of this series, Alex Zanardi announced last week that he will move to Formula One next year. That will be a great loss to the series. This weekend, Jan Bikas has taken a closer look at the two-time PPG Cup champ.
Recently CART crowned its 1998 FedEx champion. This two-time champion knows the winning combination comes from many ingredients.
It takes the team, it takes everybody together, and Zanardi is one of the ingredients of the package that won the last two championships.
But to be the best, you have to be willing to do what the other driver won't. From his infamous pass in '96 at Laguna to this year's drive at Long Beach, Zanardi showed the simple philosophy that makes him the best.
That's what I learned from my dad, you know, never gave up. And I knew the disadvantage I had to clear was huge. But I thought, hey, I got not much to lose. If I can just keep going harder and harder and harder and don't lose time passing people, I may gain a lot on the leaders, and that's what I did.
Zanardi is a humble man who appreciates the opportunity he's been given.
I mean, look at me. I'm a living example of that. I came here with nothing other than my anger, my desire to do well, and I made it.
Today, Alex sits on top of the world, from winning a championship to the birth of their first son, Nicolo.
It's incredible, and I'm on the top of the world right now. I can't wait to see him again and to hold him. It's such a joy that gets you, and I think if you haven't been a father, you don't know that.
A father-son combination is not new to CART, as Alex ponders the thoughts of his son's future.
I hope that that he's a little bit more like his mom, because if it's like me, he's gonna make me lose a lot of sleep in the night.
Well, I don't know how much sleep he has lost because of Nicolo's arrival on the scene. Nicolo and, of course, Daniela are on the other side of the pond, as they say. They are at home in Italy. Alex Zanardi joins us here, Jimmy Vasser, and you hear engines in the background. They are warming the engines, but the call has not gone out for the drivers. So they are making progress, we are told, in getting the drainage on the race circuit. And rest assured, gentlemen, we'll let you get out of here in time to go racing, but we're going to take advantage of an opportunity to chat for just a moment. Since we last saw you 3 weeks ago in the race at Laguna Seca, you had a chance to go back. The announcement was made about the F1. You had a chance to test with the Williams team. Can you give us any idea of how you felt and how that test went?
Well, the test went very well. It was important for me just to do some running, as next time I will have a better starting point. The car was definitely pretty interesting with all the development that they've done in this year since I haven't been involved in Formula One. It's a lot of fun to drive, definitely hooked up in the fast corners because it's really light, and a little bit more tricky in the slow corners compared to champ cars. Whenever it goes, whenever it starts to slide, it does not come back as fast as our cars do. But it was definitely fun to drive with the semi-automatic gearbox and with just 2 pedals, and it's going to be very fascinating for me to just go deeper into that experience.
I understand the car was set up for left foot braking, and you're a right foot braker, is that right?
Yeah, I took some lessons from my teammate Jimmy Vasser on that, and it was definitely difficult for me to learn how to do it. Didn't take long to just drive the car around. It's going to be definitely more difficult to build the sensitivity in my left foot in order to do what it takes in the race when you need to overtake somebody and so on, you know, just to modulate your
Right.
pressure with your left foot.
They're telling me that it's just over 2 minutes when the command goes out, drivers, to your cars, so very shortly you'll break away. Jimmy, I know you're losing a teammate and a close personal friend. By the same token, there was quite an enticement for you, offered a chance to go F1 racing, but you made the decision to stay with Chip Ganassi for the next, I believe, 3 years. Was it a difficult decision to arrive at?
Well, you know, at certain times in your life, you come to a crossroads and you have to make a decision that, you know, can really affect your life. And in that sense, it was a bit of a difficult decision. You don't want to make the wrong decision, but Alex tried to entice me by offering me some residence right next door to him, and perhaps I could watch his son growing up. But, you know, I made a decision that Target Chip Ganassi Racing has been the place for me, and I think it will be for the future. Although I'm very sad to lose a great teammate like Alex and a good friend, but I think that, you know, we're going to be keeping in close touch many years in the future.
Well, it's great to set between champions, and it's almost inconceivable. He's won the last 2 championships. He won the championship before it. The Ganassi team is dominant, and it's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on those 2 red cars today under these wet conditions. The call is about 2 minutes away from climbing into those cars, guys, so go, have fun. Thanks for spending some time with us. We'll go to Bob Varsha.
All right, thanks, Gary. Of course, the most compelling question is, with Alex gone, who's going to make the donuts? We'll be back to Houston after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Intensifying in the pit lane, temporary circuits are always a compromise, and not just to the layout of the streets. Gary Gerould and Jan Bikas pick it up.
Anytime you come to a brand new street circuit venue, you've got complications and unique challenges, and here 2 of them pertain to pit road, at the entrance and at the exit. The cones mark the entrance to the pits. On the other side of the cones is the front straightaway of the racetrack. You come around those cones, you cross a dotted line right here, and you're into the 60-mile-an-hour zone. Cones here set up to protect the first car in the pits. That's Christian Fittipaldi. And the guys working on the left side of that car, they are exposed to some danger. Now, for the challenge at pit exit, let's go to Jan.
Gary, you can do 60 miles an hour all the way down pit road until you get here, and you can pass. But once you make this left-hand turn, no more passing and no more speed limit. You get to a very narrow section of the racetrack after you turn left, and the drivers say you couldn't go over 60 even if you wanted to. Then they have to be concerned about the exit onto the racetrack. Don't cross that yellow line. There's an antenna there. If you miss it, your car will not be scored leaving the pits.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was our first Toyota Spotlight of the day, done when it was dry. As you can see, it is wet but drying here in Houston. Now, the subjects of the controversy have been both the pit entrance, as the boys described, and the exit. But there really isn't a whole lot that the organizers can do when you're dealing with a temporary circuit.
Anytime there's a street circuit, you've got to kind of find a way around what is dealt you. And they have a very tight pit entrance. The biggest concern, of course, will be right down in this area. If Christian Fittipaldi, who's in this pit, and Michael Andretti, who is in this pit, are in, it's very tight. Then they'll accelerate up the pit lane. But I think it actually helps slow them down quite a bit, and I think it'll make the pits a little bit safer. Of course, the entrance you can see here where the drivers will have to come around like that and up that very tight corner. Christian Fittipaldi will go in there and stop right there. Michael Andretti in like that and stop in that area. Those two guys have a tough job.
Now at the other end of the pit lane, the pit exit has also been the source of some controversy. We'll get a close look at that when the cars begin to roll, which they will do in just a few minutes. Stand by for more live from the Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. We now have cars rolling. We're moments away from the start of the race. Let's check the starting grid. On the pole for the 4th time in his career, matching his number of wins, but Greg Moore has never won from the pole position. He'll start today's race alongside the new Flying Scot, Dario Franchitti. Starting on row 2 will be 96 Series champion Jimmy Vasser. He'll start alongside Paul Tracy, his best qualifying effort of the season. On row 3 will be Christian Fittipaldi and Bryan Herta, trying to make it 2 wins in a row. On row 4, we'll have Gilles de Ferran in the Valvoline car and Alex Zanardi, who's had gearbox troubles this weekend. Row 5 will be Bobby Rahal and Andre Ribeiro. Row 6, Tony Kanaan, the rookie leader, and Adrian Fernandez of Mexico. On row 7, Michael Andretti and Max Pappas. On row 8 will be Mauricio Gugelmin and Al Unser Jr., the Street King. On row 9, Helio Castro Neves and Richie Hearn. On row 10 will be Scott Pruitt and Alex Barron. On row 11, J.J. Leto of Finland and fellow Formula One veteran Mark Blundell of Great Britain. On row 12, Michel Jourdain Jr. from Mexico and Robbie Gordon. On row 13, Patrick Carpentier from Canada and Art Meyer of Germany. And on row 14, Dennis Vitolo and Vincenzo Sospiri, partnering Alex Barron for Dan Gurney's All-American Racers. As you see, the cars are now on the street. They'll make 2 laps before we turn them to green. Let's go to Jan Bikus.
Well, now we obviously have the opportunity, or it may come and become likely that we'll have a timed race, meaning that we may not do all 100 laps. Now, they were already saying if there was 100 and he had a whole bunch of yellow, you might be able to only come onto pit road once to get fuel. So we may see pit strategy today as far as what we're going to have for number of stops. But remember, if the track starts to dry and they're on rain tires, they'll come in and get slicks. That'll blow the whole one-stop strategy right out the window. Bob?
All right, thanks, Jan. I'm going down my grid here trying to decide how many of our drivers have had wet weather experience in Champ Cars. We had a lot of rain early in the season, Danny Sullivan. I believe Vincenzo Sospiri, driving for Dan Gurney at the back of the field, though, has not spent any time in the wet.
Not in a Champ Car, but he's a very experienced driver. Of course, he's a sports car champion now from Europe, Formula 3000. He has a tremendous amount of experience in wet. He just has to adapt to this. The biggest question mark for all of these guys is they don't know the circuit in the wet, so they have to find where the slippery spots are, where the manhole covers are. Tommy Kendall mentioned the stripes on the road. They've got to find that. They've got to find the places where the grip is. I just saw in the back of our picture one of the Newman Haas cars dive into the pit lane. Don't know whether he has a problem or he was just making a change to the car.
I think that what that is, Danny. That's Michael Andretti. Believe it or not, another question mark is some of these guys are on slick tires. I didn't get a good read on everybody, but I know Robbie Gordon was on slicks. A number of guys towards the back are gambling on slick tires. It's still pretty wet to me, but if it stays dry, it'll dry out in a hurry.
Tommy,
the question is, can they get through any laps before it dries out?
Tommy, this is Gary down on pit road. I thought the same thing, but I just checked with 2 teams, and they said no, they declared a wet start. They say the Goodyears appear to be slick as you see them. They don't have that distinctive tread design the Firestone does. So I'm frankly just a bit confused. I thought it was about half and half, but they're telling me they declared a wet start. That means everybody would be on rain tires. Danny?
That's right, but Michael Andretti just came into the pits. He's blasting back out now, but he had some problem with the steering wheel. He didn't like it. It might have been that it was just so loose because of the surface that he couldn't believe that there was that little grip and that it was moving around. They checked it over, looked at it externally and underneath the steering wheel, took it off, put it back on, greased it all up. And he said, let's go. It feels okay. Let's go back out. We'll have to watch that one closely.
It will be a single file start as Jim Swintel, the kart flagman, is on the backstretch, the long Austin Avenue straightaway. That's where they will take the green flag for the initial start of this race. The rest of the flags will come from the start-finish flag stand, much like the way we run the Mid-Ohio race. For you fans of the kart series,
you already see right there a little bit of a groove going down a line. That darker, duller tone that's on the street surface means that these cars, look at that, how they clean it up. They're like a big vacuum cleaner, and they'll make a line around this track as they do more and more laps.
Jan Bikus.
And the reason that Michael Andretti is going to start at the back is steering related. He said the steering was very heavy. So they brought the car in, they sprayed some fluid in one of the bushings and the joints for the steering rack itself. And Michael Andretti has to start from the back, but they think they have the problem solved.
Well, if that's the case, that working out with his wife Leslie is going to come into play here, because he's going to need all the strength that he can. Remember, these cars do not have any kind of power assist steering.
As you can see, the skies are lightening a bit over the streets of Houston, Texas. Now Michael Andretti is coming back into the pits. The track is 1.5 miles long, 1.527 miles to be precise. 100 laps of racing are scheduled as Andretti pits again, but the green flag is expected on the backstretch. Greg Moore on the point, leading Dario Franchitti and Jimmy Vasser.
And of course, everybody, when they come onto this backstretch, will all move into their positions.
It looks like they've called for a single file.
Single file. I stand corrected. And that is because of the conditions.
The green flag waves. We are underway, and look at that spray as Franchitti moves down the inside of Moore. Paul Tracy looking around the outside. Jimmy Vasser is right there, and Christian Fittipaldi making a big move in the black Kmart car. And Gilles de Ferran goes around.
And bangs Brian Herta, bumped him just slightly into the wall. We saw it look like Al Unser Jr. back there as well.
All kinds of skating going around. You rode with Gilles de Ferran as he kicked the car around beautifully. And now we have yellow flags from the flag stand, a full course yellow. So we expected a wild start, and we got one.
That's kind of what I alluded to when I said that you know, you can hope for rain, but nobody is immune to the mistakes. Now, Gilles de Ferran is a fantastic rain driver, but it doesn't matter who you are. There are just more chances taken, more uncertainty in the rain. That's what makes you spots up, but it also is what puts you at the back like it has him. Al Jr. is trying to refire. Brian Herta is still where he came to rest, up against the wall, pinched by Gilles de Ferran.
There you see one of the Penske cars. That looks like Al Unser Jr. getting some help for the kart safety team. There is Brian Herta, who made contact with Gilles de Ferran as he deranged that right front.
He didn't hit very hard. I don't think that. I think once he gets refired, I think the stalling is what's keeping him there. We won't know till he gets going whether it's. He didn't hit very hard. We'll see here in a sec.
Go, go, go is what Brian Herta wants.
And unfortunate for Brian Herta, because he was just a passenger there, and unfortunately when Gilles bumped him, there wasn't anything that he could do. But look back here, and look how hard, look at that gray back there. Can you imagine what it's like trying to see what the guy in front of you is doing? And we'll come down here. Everybody funnels in there pretty good. Christian Fittipaldi off there. And there you see Gilles de Ferran trying to stand on the gas, loops it around. Brian Herta going up in there, had nowhere to go, got bumped into the wall. This is de Ferran. See, he tried to stand on the gas, does not know what the surface is like, looped it, bumped over there. Brian Herta in the wall.
Now looking at the back, Dennis Vitolo just making the corner.
And of course, Alex Barron right there going, okay, Dennis, which way are you going? I'll go the other way, but I need to know which way you're going.
That was actually on the pace lap before the start of the race. So, you know, even when they're forming up, the pace car pulled out, they're trying to get around to the back straightaway. Again, these guys have these first laps. It's not like they're seeing it for the first time this year. They have never seen a wet lap on this racetrack.
Some 900 turbocharged horses underfoot can get away from you in a hurry. Dario Franchitti leads his teammate Paul Tracy. Greg Moore, our pole sitter, now runs in the third position, followed by Christian Fittipaldi, Jimmy Vasser, Alex Zanardi, and Bobby Rahal. To Jan Bikus.
A further update on Michael Andretti. He's been in the pits twice. He will be back on pit lane here shortly. He said on the radio, I can physically not turn the car to the right at all. It's taking all of my might to do it. They've looked at it twice. They do not know what the problem is. He just comes to a stop now. They're going to look at it further.
And the wheels will come off.
And that's something, if you can't turn a steering wheel on a wet track, which is like having power steering, you've got a big problem.
Ed Nathman on the radio tells Michael he's clear. He makes his way down the pit lane at the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. Now Michael Andretti will have to control his emotions as he tries to untangle the riddle of this race car.
Well, the other thing is race cars usually don't fix themselves. So as a driver, I've done it before. You come in and say, and they look it all over and they send you right back out because they don't know what else to do at that point. But as a driver, you're kind of scratching your head saying, well, I don't think this thing's going to heal itself. But what they're doing is if they can keep getting yellows, it'll allow them to keep coming in and look at it without losing a lap.
Now, as Michael pulled out, you got to look at the elaborate pit exit. Several turns right and left, 5 in all, very, very tight before they make their way onto the track. That is one of the aspects of this new circuit on the streets of downtown Houston that will be changed for next year. Toyota safety car in the hands of Ron DeTrammell controlling the pace, with Dario Franchitti already with 2 series victories in his pocket this season. Leads the way. There's Gilles de Ferran in the Valvoline car, having gone around. Scott Pruitt and Alex Barron. We ride with Alex Zanardi. And the rain appears to be coming down again, or else it's being kicked up by those rain tires of the cars ahead.
I believe that's just some spray off the cars. These things are like a vacuum cleaner. They just suck it off the surface and throw it back.
Gallons of water heaved into the air by these treaded rain tires. As we come back onto Austin Avenue, Zanardi controls his spin, accelerates to the green flag. We're back underway. Christian Fittipaldi looks down the inside of Greg Moore, then tucks back behind on lap 4.
And of course, they've gone off the asphalt onto the concrete, very rough in there, different kind of surface, back onto the asphalt. And look at Greg Moore, he loops around and bangs right back into Christian. It's very similar to what happened with Gilles de Ferran, but the result is a lot more disastrous for Christian Fittipaldi and probably Greg Moore.
That is at the pit exit on Crawford Street. And once again, we are under yellow. We have a huge crowd on hand. No one left the grandstand through those heavy rain showers. They deserve a great show, and hopefully we'll get one started shortly.
Remember, these are city streets. They're very slippery, and these guys are trying to put 900-plus horsepower down on the ground.
Another look.
Come around, see everybody squirming a little bit in there. Greg Moore comes around, stands on the gas, just loops it around. Now, Christian goes the right way, tries to dodge him, but Greg just keeps moving back. I believe Greg was trying to roll back to get out of everybody's way, did not realize that Christian had gone back there.
Here's another look from overhead. Behind him, Vassar and Zanardi go to the left once it became clear that Moore was going backwards. So after a great qualifying effort, Christian Fittipaldi's day is sadly over. Greg Moore thinks he can get back into the hunt. We'll be back to Houston in a moment.
Andretti has decided to call it a day. I know you're in all your might. You were trying to turn that steering wheel. Any idea at all what's wrong?
I don't know. There's something jamming up in the steering rack. It's just so heartbreaking. I feel bad for everybody here at Texaco. I mean, both cars out on the first lap. It's really disappointing because I think, you know, we could have done pretty well today. So it's just a heartbreaking day for all of us here at Newman Haas and Texaco, and we're sorry.
Tough break for Michael Andretti. Thanks.
And his teammate, unfortunately, also out of the competition. Christian, were you totally a victim in this situation?
Oh, I guess so. Like Moore just spun in my front and there was nowhere to go. Like you have a fraction of a second to make a decision, and in the beginning of his spin he was going one way, then he ended up the other way. I actually thought I was gonna go by him, but he nailed me, and that was it. And
how badly does it hurt? Because I know you like to drive in the wet, and you've proved that you're a master of that.
Well, a lot. Like the car was very good in the dry this weekend. We were starting up there. I had passed Vassar already. Like everything was going under control. And as you said, like I really like driving in the wet, so I thought I had a very good shot at it today. Like so, it's a shame. And what can I say? Maybe it's gone together with the year I had, like which has been very, very difficult for me. It hasn't been easy.
Thank you, Christian.
So a tough day for the Haas cars from Newman Haas Racing. Carl Haas is the promoter of this event. We'll be back to Houston after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Houston, Texas, Tuesday night after Spin City here on ABC. Another brand new episode of the show that critics are calling the best new comedy of the year. From the writer of the film A Few Good Men, go behind the scenes to where the real life happens on Sports Night, Tuesday at 9:30, 8:30 Central on ABC. Here at the inaugural Grand Prix of Houston, Bob Varsha along with Danny Sullivan, Tommy Kendall, Gary Gerould, and Jan Beekes. We have just 7 laps of 100 scheduled in the books after a long delay at getting this race started. It is the first attempt to start the race after heavy rain showers swamped the course. As you can see, the cars are on track. We've had a couple of incidents, several cars out of the race at this point, but we expect perhaps one more lap of caution and we will be back underway. Down to Gary Gerould.
Greg Moore forlornly watching the monitor. What do you say in this situation, Greg? Is this a case of driver error?
Yeah, just one of those racing things. You know, we went through there, and real unfortunate that it happened. I think we could have had a great race today if it had been dry, but you know, just one of those things where we thought we had a good shot of winning today, and all of a sudden the weather changes on us, and it's disappointing. But you know, I feel bad that you know, I feel bad for everyone in this team. You know, we need something to kind of uplift our spirits a little bit. You know, obviously this isn't the way to do it, but pole position was nice. We'll just have to go to Surfers and try and win there.
Thank you, Greg.
All right.
5th DNF in a row for Greg Moore, who, lest we forget, led the series standings very strongly in the early part of this season before misfortune set in. We remain under a yellow flag, but without the safety car on course, and we anticipate we will get the green flag the next time Dario Franchitti brings the field by here at the Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. Running order is Franchitti, his teammate Tracy, then Jimmy Vasser, Alex Zanardi, Bobby Rahal, Tony Kanaan, Andre Ribeiro, Adrian Fernandez, Max Pappas, and Gilles de Ferran, the top 10.
Of course, one of the things they're trying to do here is get a good lap going, let everybody get a feel for the track in the wet without trying to make a pass on somebody, do it under sort of controlled conditions, and get a little bit more racing under their belt and a quick lap around the track.
A lurid twitch from the back of race leader Dario Franchitti's Reynard Honda. We are back underway.
Looking at the Team Cool green cars, they made a significant move at the start. We've had very little green flag, but they went from 2nd to 4th into 1-2 before Greg Moore had his problem. So I don't know if they gambled on a full rain setup or if those guys just feel comfortable, but they were both very aggressive and comfortable from the get-go.
Well, Dario Franchitti, of course, is very good in the wet, has a lot of experience from his European days. There is Andre Ribeiro spun off. That's it, right at pit out. He can't get around because he's afraid if he pulls all the way across, somebody will clip him, which they would.
He just stalled it too, I believe.
Ribeiro spun from 7th place. Local yellow for the moment. Let's take another look. Same place as Greg Moore and Christian Fittipaldi got together. Turn 2, the slowest turn on the track.
He just got out there a little high where it was a little bit damper, tried to put the power on. Remember, everybody that's driving these cars, they're trying to find that balance of being able to put over 900 horsepower down on the floor and get traction and get off. That's very difficult to do on a surface they're not used to.
You can't imagine how funny that is. We see Jimmy Vasser has, Alex Zanardi's gotten around Jimmy Vasser, but both those incidents, those guys, they're probably going 25 or 30 miles an hour. The big tires that these cars have actually work against them in the wet, where they have more surface area. It only takes a little bit of water to hydraulic the cars literally off of the ground. And so your street car would actually be quicker in that one corner.
Tommy, here's an update on Zanardi. He has lost radio contact with his crew, but before that radio ran out under the yellow, he told them it is so slippery out here, but he says if these conditions stay the same, I'm going to be leading this race very shortly.
Let's also not forget, Jimmy Vasser has to drive a very smart race. He wants that 2nd in the championship. He's leading it right now. He has to think points. He can't get too racy. Alex Zanardi is not somebody that he's threatened by in terms of points.
A lot less water being thrown in the air by those grooved rain tires as the track continues to dry. The points championship coming in, Alex Zanardi has clinched. He has nearly twice the points of the 2nd place man in the championship. That's his teammate Jimmy Vasser. But just 10 points behind Vasser is Adrian Fernandez. Then Dario Franchitti, just 4 behind Fernandez. Greg Moore was just 4 behind Franchitti coming in, but as you know, he's out of the race. Michael Andretti was just 6 behind Moore in 6th place. He too is out. Scott Pruitt has 106 points, just 6 behind Andretti's total thus far. He could do some serious moving up today. On board with Bobby Rahal, who put a charge through the crowd here in Houston by taking provisional pole after Friday's first round of qualifying, and this his final year on the FedEx Championship Series Tour.
You heard Rahal short shift there. There's no point in revving it out when you can't use the effective power available. That's one of the older tricks in rain. You go a gear higher everywhere. You see that car just fighting for traction, short shifting, half throttle, the whole 9 yards. And it really is these cars are not made for this, and it's a real handful.
You know what? Let's go to an inboard camera and listen to how these guys are on the throttle. Here we're on board with Bobby Rahal. This is so much different than if it was dry, where he'd be just pushing that throttle down as hard as he can, trying to go forward. Now he's got to find a way to put the power on the ground, not get too sideways. See, hear him spin a little bit there. See, that's just when he jumps up to about 3/4 throttle and it can break it loose. He's trying to find where he can go forward, really be gentle on the throttle. Bobby, of course, tremendously experienced.
They teach you in racing school, it's as though a string connected your accelerator foot to the steering wheel. If the wheel turns, your foot lifts. Adrian Fernandez going by Andre Ribeiro.
And we've talked about the manhole covers, but you can see them around the circuit. All those manhole covers, as everybody knows who drives on the street, are metal. And when they're wet, they are slippery. You can slip on those walking down the street. So imagine trying to put 900+ horsepower on the ground over one of those.
Ribeiro staying close. That, of course, was not a pass for position. After Ribeiro's spin, he is shown as 2 laps down. Adrian Fernandez currently in 7th place. Among the drivers on the move, Bobby Rahal a moment ago. We saw him. He's gone all the way from a 9th place start to 5th place on the track. Tony Kanaan started 11th, now runs 6th. And Max Pappas started 14th. He now runs 8th. He, too, had a great first round of qualifying on Friday.
Alex Zanardi's confidence was nice that he's going to be leading this race shortly, but he's going to have to get on his horse because Dario Franchitti is between 1.4 and 2 seconds a lap faster every single lap for the past 4 laps. He is just checking out.
As far as our first and second place cars go, we check with the Team Cool to find out if they went with any kind of wet setup. They say no, they have not. And we've had an accident on the track, guys.
Big crash in the final turn, turn 10. That appears to have blocked the entire track.
And that is completely blocked there. Look at this. No, very little gap. Look. Oh, and they're trying to get through in this area right there. There's no room there. They'll have to come up the pit lane. Everybody's moving forward. We're going to go red.
The red flag is out. A number of cars involved. Michel Jourdain, Robbie Gordon, Andre Ribeiro. There's Helio Castroneves and Tony Bettenhausen's Alumax car trying to get it reversed around. Patrick Carpentier is in the middle of that group. So are both of Dan Gurney's cars, I believe. Alex Barron and Vincenzo Sospiri.
Let's remember, when it goes red, they go back to the scoring the lap previous to that. So even though these guys are out here and the other people have gone up the pit lane, they will put them back in position where they were the lap prior to that. Let's watch what happens. Oh, a little touch right there by that car, which looked like it was Robbie Gordon, touched this car right here, Michel Jourdain, and everybody else. Look, Mark Blundell making moves in there. Here we're going to see it from a different angle. Look, those two guys touch right there. Robbie Gordon gives Michel Jourdain a little love tap, spins him around, and nobody's got any place to go. Robbie dives in the side. Not a very good place to try that move. And they just got tangled up. Now, those cars will be damaged. So if they have a long red, they will have a chance to repair them.
It is a red flag, so they can go to the pits and be worked on. Let me correct myself. Neither of Dan Gurney's cars involved in that schmozzle. Here's how they stand after 13. Stay with us. Welcome back to the inaugural Texaco Grand Prix of Houston, live here on ABC Sports. Bob Varsha, Danny Sullivan with you in English. We are under a red flag after a multiple car incident at the final quarter leading on to the start-finish straightaway. Let's take another look, Danny.
Look at Robbie come right in there. Now freeze right there. there is no place for Michel Jourdain to go. He can't go wide. He can't do anything. Robbie was ill-advised to make that move. It was a good attempt, but he had to back off before they got into the corner so that this particular incident didn't occur.
The cars eventually involved Patrick Carpentier, Mark Blundell, Brian Herta, Helio Castroneves. As we saw, Robbie Gordon, Michel Jourdain Jr., the two cars that precipitated the accident. Al Unser Jr. also got stopped in the middle of it. There is Jourdain back underway with damage to that front wing. Once again, we'll reiterate, you can get to the pits and work on the car before they send them back out. The question is, how long will the red flag last? Let's go down to Jan Bikas.
Well, Bob, we were just in the middle of a sentence talking about the Team Cool Green really hadn't made any changes for the wet. So even if it dried, you guys were pretty confident. Now you have a red flag, Kim Green. What do you change on the car?
Well, obviously, once the card allows us to work on the car, we'll fuel it. Dario's comments during the first few laps when there were some yellows that it was like driving on an ice rink. All the white lines on the racetrack and all the manhole covers make it very, very slippery. He was running well and pulling away from Paul, who was also in turn pulling away from Zanardi. So both drivers are pretty comfortable. You know, the big call for us will be, when do we switch to dry tires, if and when the racetrack dries out, providing it doesn't rain some more.
Any chance you could put them on now and take a chance?
No, I think that would be a big risk. The track is still very slippery. I mean, obviously, it also depends how long this red flag it stops the race for. You know, we're in a very hot climate here right now, 90+ degrees. Things will dry out very quickly, but at this point, I'd say we'll be staying on wets at least for the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Kim. Let's get to Gary.
Yeah, we're understanding, Jan, that it will probably be approximately 10 minutes under this red flag scenario. That's a big concern for some of those teams that were blocked and were out on the racetrack. The guys that got into their pit boxes immediately, such as Alex Zanardi running here in third place, they immediately went to work on the car. They can make repairs. They made a couple of changes on the front wings in terms of the handling characteristics. They also immediately fueled the car. Now, if we turn around here and look back in this direction at Jimmy Vasser, who sets in 4th position in car number 12. We just talked with Tom Anderson, and he said, we are trying our best, and it was our strategy to just stay out of trouble, let this thing settle down, and then hopefully it dries out and we can seriously go racing. So no significant changes for Vasser in the 12 car.
Well, it has been a wild 20 minutes or so. The clock stops with the red flag, and we are under a 2-hour time limit in this race. There's how they stand at the top of the grid. We'll reorder the field and turn them loose again shortly. Stand by for more from Texas. Our second Toyota Spotlight of the day takes us back 3 weeks ago to Monterey, California, and the second annual Pro Celebrity Ride benefiting Championship Drivers Association, the Richstone Family Center, and the U.S. Association for Blind Athletes. Dozens of motorcycle enthusiasts joined a group of drivers, including our own Danny Sullivan, for 350 miles of scenic California riding over 2 days, starting at Laguna Seca Raceway, ending with a big beach party in Santa Monica, California. It's a great event. You can do it next year. Contact CART's offices in Michigan. Back live in Houston, you see CART officials now gridding the cars echelon style in the order they were running before the red flag came out. Here's a look at the full field. Dario Franchitti leading teammate Paul Tracy, then Alex Zanardi, Jimmy Vasser, Bobby Rahal, and the rest. Several cars out of the race, including Michael Andretti and his teammate Christian Fittipaldi. Greg Moore also out of the race. Several cars laps down after visits to the pits to repair damage in the incident that brought out our red flag. There's Michel Jourdain Jr. having an animated conversation with his team, no doubt describing what happened when he came together with Robbie Gordon to bring out the red flag. It appears that his race is run. To Jan Bikas.
Well, Bob, when these guys were on pit road, they could work on the car and do whatever they wanted to, but they chose not to change tires. And that's because a brand new rain tire has very sharp edges, and you see it has these little mold release pieces of rubber on here that doesn't give you as much grip as a tire that has actually been scrubbed in. And because the track is so wet and so slippery, very few people up and down pit road, unless they had a problem, changed the tires. So scrubbed in tires, rain tires right now, no one brave enough to try slicks.
But we do hope they get the opportunity to later on. There is the view from overhead. We'd like to give you a view of the racetrack, but the clouds are moving in again. The rain is not falling at the moment. We'll take a break here in Houston and return after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. Welcome back live to the inaugural Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. All the folks in the grandstand who have waited for so long to watch the rain stop and the racing start. How about a wave to America? That's right. They have put up with an incredible amount of bad weather, but they have stuck through it to watch their heroes in action. We are still under a red flag. The grid is being reset according to the running order before the red flag came out. There you see the vast crowd of fans from the Tecate and Quaker State team in Mexico supporting Adrian Fernandez and his team in today's race. In case you're wondering how they knew I was talking about them, radio scanners are very popular in motorsports.
And of course, Adrian signed every one of those people's autograph over the course of the weekend. He spent hours and hours signing their autograph.
That's right, and they've been told that you're going to come out there and sign an autograph for each of them too before they go home at the end of the day. We expect racing to begin shortly here in Houston. There is the pit lane outside the George Brown Convention Center, the paddock and pit area for the Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. Let's go down to Jan Bikus in the pit lane with another of the drivers out of the race.
And of course, it's Michel Jourdain, and it was Robbie Gordon that went to the inside. Did you see him coming?
I mean, well, the car was very good out of Mexico. I mean, the car was great. I mean, in the first restart, I passed Mark very easy, and I catch JJ and everybody. Then I think valve, we dropped a valve, so the engine was very, very slow, and so in the straight they were pulling very bad, and then I catching them again. And then just Robbie, I don't know, he kept hitting and hitting, and I saw him, but I think there was, I mean, we were in the corner, and he was just hitting and hitting and hitting till he spun me, and I think he's crazy. But
were you on your way to the pits to try and get that fixed?
No, I was going to stay out a little bit more. I mean, I don't know. I mean, in that moment I was going to stay. We were going to drop out anyway, but it has nothing to do with the accident, you know.
Okay. Michel Jourdain is out, and the Mexican fans certainly only now have one guy to continue to cheer for. The engines are fired, guys.
All right, thank you, Jan. Tough break for the youngest driver in the series, Michel Jourdain, just 22 years of age. His father, Michel Sr., is with him every step of the way. Great family effort in racing, but that's what racing is about, family. We had a 37-minute in total rain delay before our first attempt to start this Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. The cars are now heading back out after just over 17 minutes under the red flag. There's the view from the helicopter overhead of that long twisting pit exit.
And very narrow.
Our Honda Helicam getting as low as they can among the skyscrapers here in downtown Houston. Dario Franchitti leads his teammate Paul Tracy back on track.
People might be wondering how some asphalt has more grip than others. It's all black, right? Well, it's like a recipe, and everybody has their idea of what goes into making the best asphalt. Here in Houston, because of the extreme heat in the summers, my understanding it has a little bit different polymer that makes it more durable, but it also makes it extremely slippery in the wet, which would explain exactly what we're seeing. It seems to be holding. Ordinarily the track would have been dry a long time ago, guys would have been on slicks. Here it seems to be holding the water. The humidity obviously contributes to that, but it's making it very, very slick, and it's making these guys, these guys are the best drivers in the world and having some serious troubles.
Much of this track was resurfaced at a cost of some $2 million. You see a few bits of rubber marbles there, rubber having come off the tires. It includes the amount of money that was spent to secure some 191 manhole covers on both the racing surface and the pit lane. Gary Gerould.
You talk about manhole covers. Here's an interesting shot. A giant fan in the pit of Alex Zanardi held by 2 crew members, and they're blowing right down on the surface of one of those manhole covers. It's right in the middle of their pit. They don't want to take a chance that if their driver has to come diving in here to perhaps change from rain tires to slicks, that they'll have it as dry and as much adhesion as absolutely possible. I don't think I've ever seen that before in one of these races.
Well, as you can see, they're having some success. Those lighter patches are where the surface of the pavement is beginning to dry.
And Bob, they have the slicks up on the wall for Zanardi. I don't know if that means anything at this point, but they are standing by. So they're hoping for a dry track.
Of course, one of the biggest problems if we go to slicks, there is a dry line around the track. You will be faster. But when you come onto the slower cars and you go to pass them, you have to go off of that dry line onto the wet line. And that can be very tricky.
And Danny, another thing you have to keep in mind, even if the track is dry, the pit lane most likely will not be. There's probably going to be some standing water in that very narrow section that leads at the pit exit. So if you come in and get slicks, you got to make sure you don't crash before you ever hit the track.
If you remember Portland a couple years ago, the secret in going to dry tires, it's always a gamble, and the guy who gambles right first, the first guy on dries at the right time, will have a big advantage. At Portland a few years ago, the first 3 or 4 guys that put him on it, Gilles de Ferran, Paul Tracy, all crashed out of the race. As I recall, the eventual winner, Blundell, was the guy who put him on earliest and did not crash.
And of course, that led to the closest 3-way finish in series history, thousandths of a second separating Mark Blundell, the race winner, Gilles de Ferran, who led coming off the final corner, and the 3rd place car of Raul Boesel.
And guys, we're hearing confirmation now from driver radios. Jimmy Vasser being the latest, saying this track is drying out in a hurry. Get the slicks ready.
Looks very dry right there. 10 turns in all on this track, most of them 90-degree corners, but a couple, particularly turns 7 and 2, are much tighter, while turn 8 is a very wide radius corner, and the cars move very quickly through there. Across the start-finish line they come. Rhonda Trammell brings the PPG pace car off. 1 more lap under yellow. We will have green once again here at the Texaco Grand Prix of Houston.
I'm not sure I quite understand this 1 more lap of yellow. They did it last time, and Franchitti just took off like it was green. So it's great if you're the leader. They can't pass you, and you get to go as fast as you want. So I'm not sure I understand this procedure. I know maybe in theory it's supposed to, if the guy in front doesn't take off, gives everyone a chance to see the conditions. But technically they're still under yellow, but he's taken off.
Well, I think the problem is, Tommy, they do that to get everybody back up kind of the racing speed and keep them in line. The key is that the guy behind the leader and everybody in line after that has to go as fast as the leader.
Exactly. When the leader's 2 seconds a lap faster than everybody, it just turns into a big strung out. And I understand that, but these guys are big boys. They're grown-ups. I say just let them go racing.
I agree with you, Tommy.
Well, one way or the other, we are about to go racing once again, and Dario Franchitti is opening up a gap over his teammate Paul Tracy. Keep in mind, when these treaded rain tires find themselves on dry racing surface, they lose their effectiveness very, very quickly, and we'll see drivers looking for every bit of moisture to keep them cool and damp. We have the green flag. Restart on lap 17 of 100. And a big gap for the front runners. That's Adrian Fernandez running in 7th place. Max Pappas goes down the inside of Andre Ribeiro. Gilles de Ferran follows him through.
And it looks to me like Andre Ribeiro's having a problem because Richie Hearn just went through as well. And there goes Mauricio Gugelmin.
Once again, Ribeiro's a couple of laps down, so those passing him are not gaining positions. Pappas runs 8th, Gilles de Ferran 9th, Richie Hearn 10th, Mauricio Gugelmin 11th, and that's Scott Pruitt in 12th, just behind Ribeiro now. Pruitt moves out, but he doesn't seem to be able to make much ground. Ribeiro is able to run competitively on this long straightaway. Alex Barron for Dan Gurney's All-American Racers in the Castrol Degree car just behind Pruitt. 13th, just outside of the points-paying positions. Now the game of cat and mouse. Where do you attempt to pass Ribeiro if you are Scott Pruitt?
Well, and I'm not so sure that Andre Ribeiro didn't have a problem on the opening lap, but he seems to have picked up his pace quite a bit here. He might have just had a problem getting himself up to speed that particular lap. Scott Pruitt's going to take a look down the inside. He's not there enough. He's going to force his way through. Andre, very gentlemanly thing there because he's down a ways on the field after his spin earlier.
That bit of concrete looks very dry. Less so here on the asphalt portion.
But again, there, Andre Ribeiro is just being passed left and right by a number of people. He seems to have a problem in that section.
Robbie Gordon goes by.
What could be happening is by being courteous, getting offline, letting these guys by, he could be cooling his tires off again, and it takes him 3 corners to get him back, any sort of temperature back into him.
We saw everybody go to the right down that straightaway there, on the right on your screen. That's to get into that dampness, to cool those tires down, to give them a longer life under these drying conditions.
Patrick Carpentier in the blue and white players car goes by Ribeiro. Back on point, Dario Franchitti.
My feeling is as long as Dario Franchitti keeps lapping faster than the field, he's now a second quicker than Paul Tracy and Alex Zanardi and most of the rest of the field. He will stay out on those tires until he feels that he's losing his advantage.
And of course, once one guy goes into the pits for the slick tires, everybody has a decision to make. Dario Franchitti motoring away. He has been so good on the temporary street circuits on the CART FedEx Championship Trail. Down to Jan Bikas.
And Mark Blundell appears to be the first driver that's going to make the move. Danny, you called it. In Portland, he was the first one to put on slicks without crashing. Now we're going to find out if he can get out of the pit exit without crashing.
Boy, and he went by us, Jan, the back wheels. You could just tell how gingerly he was on the throttle trying to reduce the wheel spin.
And of course, Mark, very experienced European driver with a lot of wet experience, and he has made this pay off for him before. Let's see how long it takes him to get up to speed out on that track. Don't forget, on that damp track, he's got to go very gingerly and try to build up some tire temperature, because until the tire temperature comes into those tires, he will not be able to go fast.
He is out ahead of the race leader, Dario Franchitti, so he stays on the lead lap. I wonder how much that move may have been motivated by desperation as the race leader goes by Blundell. He and his Pac West team, his teammate Mauricio Gugelmin, have been one of the major disappointments of the season. They won 4 races between them, 3 by that man alone, Mark Blundell. But this year they have had terrible misfortune and just have not gotten the results.
And Bob, everyone up and down pit road is watching what we're watching. They're watching Blundell to see how he does on those slicks, because they are watching his speed versus the leaders, and that's going to help them make the decision if they want to change now. So he's the guinea pig.
Tiptoeing through the corners.
And it still looks damp for me. Now, of course, Mark has tremendous amount of experience in these type of conditions.
He is an Englishman after all, and the joke is English summer weather is very, very wet.
And it'll take him some time to get some temperature in there. On street circuits, it's very difficult because there's no fast corners to build up the temperature in these tires.
One thing you have to realize that everybody going to dries is going to have this up to temperature session. As it gets drier and drier, they'll be able to get them up a little bit quicker, but because of the conditions, everyone's going to have that. So that, to some degree, will cancel out. People are going to watch after 2 laps to see how much quicker the slicks are than the wets, if any, and make the decision.
Tony Kanaan goes by. Adrian Fernandez waiting his turn. 6th and 7th.
Tommy, from my perspective, that is a very difficult way to drive a race car, because you have to constantly be looking in the mirrors. You're trying to find the dry patches to lean on those tires to get the temperature up, and yet you're still trying to go as fast as possible and not lose any ground. And look at the spray out there. That's still on the right side of the track. That seems awful wet to me.
Under these trees, it's quite damp. What an effort by Mark Blundell with a 1 1/4 square foot contact patch under all 4 tires total. He's trying to put 900 horsepower on the ground. We'll be back to Houston. Welcome back live to the inaugural Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. Bob Varsha, Danny Sullivan, Tommy Kendall, Gary Gerald, and Jan Bikus with you. Richie Hearn going up the inside of Gilles de Ferran for 9th place.
Very good, clean move there for Richie. We need to take you back a little bit, too. Remember, Mark Blundell, he was the first guy to go in for slicks. He's out there lapping right now, but he's running about 12 to 14 seconds slower than Dario Franchitti, our leader. Dario has slowed down about a second from his quickest time, but Blundell still has a ways to go before that gap closes and those slicks turn into an advantage.
He is picking up the pace, however, as you watch Richie Hearn in the Budweiser car for car owner John Della Penna.
Watching the guys, they still really cannot hustle the cars. This asphalt is very strange. It hasn't rained for quite some time, yet it doesn't seem to be drying out. Blundell's kind of proof of that. And so you could see these guys stay on reins for some time.
And while we watch this battle, as Hearn closes up now on Max Pappas, Mark Blundell continues to drop his lap times. His last one, 1 minute 22. So he is nearly 3 seconds quicker than the previous lap.
That is true, but he hasn't rocketed forward. He's still losing, let's not forget, about 10 seconds a lap to the leader. That's not the advantage. You want the advantage the other way, where you're gaining 10 seconds on that.
He may have made the decision a bit too early. On board with Bobby Rahal.
Let's also not forget that you couldn't think of a pit strategy, because when they were red, everybody fueled the cars and filled them back up, and they'll go approximately 41 laps. And remember, because they're so far off of the pace, they're going to go even further now because they're not running as fast, so they won't use as much fuel. Believe me, those guys in the pits are really working that strategy right now, trying to figure out what distance they can go, and that will drop the quicker that they go out on the track.
Well, let's follow up that story. Jan Bikus in the pit lane.
Well, yes, you talk about that question. How do you make the decision? I spoke with Kim Green, and of course he makes the call for our leader, Dario Franchitti. He says Dario will make the ultimate call when we go to slick tires, but we are telling him on the radio the information as to how fast Blundell is running. So they give him the information, but the driver is the one who makes the choice.
And they are now down to about a 5 seconds difference between what Dario Franchitti is doing and what Mark Blundell is doing. When they get that gap down to about even, believe me, it's going to be frantic in the pits.
You ride with Adrian Fernandez. Currently running in 7th spot behind rookie leader Tony Kanaan. Decision time is coming shortly as the track continues to dry. We'll take a break and return for the pit stops in Houston. Welcome back live to Houston as Alex Zanardi, the 2-time and reigning PPG Cup champion, has made his decision. He has come in for slicks, as has Adrian Fernandez.
And the next man may well be Jimmy Vasser. They are ready for him. They staggered the laps, so there wouldn't be any problem between them.
Gilles de Ferran stops for his slick tires. A remarkable series of laps. Mark Blundell, the first to go on the slicks. He was dreadfully slower than the leader when he went back out, but in the space of about a half-dozen laps, he is now running right on the same lap times as race leader Dario Franchitti, who has not yet switched to slicks. There is Franchitti.
Well, guess not only is he in front, guess who might be the genius here? Dario Franchitti, because it is starting to rain and not just sprinkle at the end of the back straightaway. So if he can stay out a little bit longer, wait it out, nobody has gone faster than him yet, even on slicks. So he's kind of in the catbird seat right now.
There is Max Pappas in the MCI car for RJR Wells Racing. He is on slicks. He pitted during our commercial break.
And guys, here's an interesting wrinkle. Vasser among those still out on wets. We are getting reports, and in fact are feeling a few sprinkles here toward pit exit. We were told that down toward the other end, there was again raindrops from this intermittent crazy sky that we've experienced today.
Oh, Max Pappas, another fine rain driver, and he is using all of his considerable talents to keep the pointy end forward on that car.
And he's also trying to make sure that Paul Tracy stays behind him. And on top of that, he's trying to get the temperature up in these tires as fast as he can so that he can use them to their best advantage.
See a little bit of moisture on the lens of that camera. The view from our Honda Helicam, the blue car is Pappas, the green and white one is Paul Tracy.
And Max looks like right there, as close as Paul was, he's pulling out a little bit through the corners.
And guys, they've pulled the slicks back away from Jimmy Vasser's where they had them laid out. They are going to stay on the wets.
And talking about Max Papis, and from that overhead shot, you could see him pull away from Paul Tracy. That is because the RCR Wells team and Toyota have built a special engine just for this racetrack. It's a lower revving engine. Now, for All-American racers, they're using the high revving Toyota engine, but they built a low revving version for Max Papis and for Robbie Gordon. And of course, in these conditions, that's definitely the way to go.
See that amber-colored visor Max Papis using in these difficult light conditions. Same sort of material used by downhill ski racers to try to accentuate what light there is there and help them get a good view of the road ahead.
I think one of the things that we're seeing right here is that Max Papis, although he pulled out a little bit on Paul Tracy, is not gaining that much. So the big thing is maybe we should just stay here. We've got reports out on the track of more rain. Let's not jump to conclusions. We're not losing that much ground. We're running first and second. We've got a big gap. Let's stay that way until we absolutely have to.
Papis goes by Vincenzo Sospiri, with whom he has battled on the sports car tracks of the world for years. Papis currently runs in the number 15 spot. Now on board with Alex Zanardi. Let's listen to his engine and see if he's getting any kind of traction.
The real key here is what the driver's information is, what they're giving back to the team about how dry it is, and also their lap times. What we're seeing out there, Zanardi's lapping at about a 1:14.4. That's a minute and 14 seconds. Dario Franchitti's running a 15.3, but Paul Tracy's at a 14.9. They're both on wet.
Herta in from position 10. Alex Zanardi takes over 9th place. The lollipop is out for Jimmy Vasser in the number 12 target car for Chip Ganassi Racing. Mauricio Gugelmin is in for Slick Rubber. Back out goes the Brazilian, Mark Blundell's teammate. There is Paul Tracy. He runs second in the field, and he heads for the pit lane.
Oh, and he slid around. He clipped that cone. I am not sure if that is a penalty or not.
And guys, obviously, he does not need a full load of fuel, so therefore it's just how fast can you change these tires, and then they'll drop it off the jacks. They've done so. 10.49 seconds for Paul Tracy. His teammate Dario Franchitti has not come in yet.
Jimmy Vasser enters the back of the pit lane. We were talking about that cone you see lying down that was put there, and the drivers were told if they clipped it, it would be worth a stop-and-go penalty. But with Christian Fittipaldi's car now out of this race, that may not be the case.
And Bob, we're watching Jimmy Vasser get service now near the pit exit. Tony Kanaan goes by on pit road at 60 miles an hour. Vasser's rolling. Oh, that was terrific. We had him just under 9 seconds.
And look at the tires and the car. A distinct shadow is now forming, and that means that the sun is trying to fight its way through the clouds above Houston, Texas.
And we're now starting to see a big change in the speed. Dario Franchitti coming in the pits. He was losing 2-3 seconds now to the fast guys on slicks. That was too much to give up. His teammates out of there. Let's make a stop.
And of course, Danny, he was very, very conservative bringing the car in here to a stop. He didn't want to take any chances. The fuel is done. They're trying to make a wing adjustment. 10.46 seconds, almost exactly the same as what we saw for Paul Tracy.
Okay, and we've got some guys out there like Max Papis, a 1:10. Adrian Fernandez, a 1:11. Dario Franchitti's last lap was a high 1:14. He can't afford to give up that time. Good time to make a stop.
Now let's go back to Paul Tracy and his pit entrance. Watch the cones on the left demarking Christian Fittipaldi's pits. He clipped the second one in line. And as I mentioned earlier, drivers were warned off doing that coming into today's race.
The actual terminology the officials used was if you dislodge a cone, it will be a drive-through penalty. So I don't see how you can go back on that. Granted, Christian is out, but unless you've notified all the teams that that rule no longer applies, I think you have to enforce it.
Well, yesterday in the drivers' meeting, gentlemen, when they discussed that very situation, it was left at that point as a call by the chief steward, Wally Dallenbach. The idea being that if you just hit one of those with the rear, you might be able to go on. But if you launch 2 or 3 of those cones, dislodge them, that definitely would result in some kind of penalty. So I think there's a big gray area here. At least that was the case coming out of the drivers' meeting yesterday.
And Gary Allenser Jr. is coming for fresh tires, and wow, 9.47 seconds. So a quick stop for Al Jr., but much later than others.
Well, we have an official word from the kart race officials. There will be no penalty levied on Paul Tracy for encroaching on those cones. Allenser Jr. heads for the pit exit. Now there is the race leader, Dario Franchitti. Bobby Rahal currently runs in second. Richie Hearn third. And now the order shifts as they cross the timing stripe. Bobby Rahal may be in because Richie Hearn moves up to second place. Paul Tracy third. Alex Zanardi fourth.
And of course, right there, Dario Franchitti just went through. And there's Paul Tracy running in position 2.
And that is about 2.1 seconds behind the race leader, Franchitti.
Remember, Paul stopped earlier, so he's got more tire temperature up. He will be going a little bit quicker. He just lapped in a 1:13. As these tires come up, they will get down into the high 1.9s, 1.8s, or 10s. We've already got Max Pappas lapping in the 1:07 second bracket.
Passing Dennis Vitolo, you ride with Richie Hearn. That was turn number 7. This is 8. Very quick corner in the dry. Now turn 9.
Here I come.
Here I come, said Richie Hearn. He is headed for the pit lane. Up front, meanwhile, the two teammates, Dario Franchitti and Paul Tracy, are nose to tail for the lead and slewing all over the racetrack with traffic ahead.
And Franchitti really got it sideways, trying to put the power down on the road. He doesn't have the temperature where he'd like in those tires yet, and he was really squirming around.
Now, obviously, this is Barry Green's worst nightmare, but Paul Tracy cannot afford really to lay back. He's got a little bit of an edge right now. Dario was pulling away before. He needs to try to make something happen. Obviously, it's high stakes when it's your teammate, but if they settle in and Dario gets up to speed, he might not have another chance. He's on the outside, Buffalo Boy style, sideways out in the wet stuff.
Oh, Paul Tracy is so exciting right here. Yeah, I think his orders are, do not make a mistake, but it's your race if you can get there. Let's not forget Dario's won 2. Paul hasn't won one for the dual team. He'd like to post a victory.
And that red car at the back of your screen, behind Alex Barron, is Alex Zanardi running in 3rd place.
And he'd like to get up in that fray and force the issue. Look at Alex Barron, sideways, coming out onto the pit straightaway.
The former karting champion, he knows what life is like sideways at high speed.
Remember, he led his first race at Vancouver, the first race for Dan Gurney and for Toyota to be leading.
And guys, while all this has been going on, if you look in the back of the screen, none other than Alex Zanardi is only 1.9 seconds back. So we could very soon, if Franchitti has a little bit of a problem, which it looks like he might, or not have the balance he wants, we could have a 3-way battle. Cool is going to have to make a team decision at that point. Do they let Paul Tracy by?
And let's not forget that Zanardi is lapping a second quicker than Franchitti and 2 seconds quicker than Paul Tracy.
Speaking of team decisions, I just asked Barry Green, what are you telling Paul Tracy? He says, I'm telling you, take it easy. Don't take any chances right now.
Barry Green took Jacques Villeneuve to the kart championship before the French-Canadian moved on.
I know what Dario Franchitti's telling him back. If you're telling me take it easy, you need to tell the same thing to Paul Tracy, because Paul Tracy is not taking it easy. He wants that win.
And you cannot blame Paul Tracy for that. And then when you've got a car that you feel is quicker, you've got to go, especially if you feel your teammate is holding you up, and you've got a guy like Alex Zanardi closing in on both of you. It's like, hey, let me by. I can get away from these guys. I've got the quickest car.
You can see the distinctively dry line is developing.
To show you how crucial traffic is, what went from 1.9 seconds is now 5.3 seconds back to Zanardi, because these guys got clear and Alex did not.
And they, Tommy, to add to that, they started lapping in the 1:07 bracket. Alex Zanardi's last lap, a 1:10. Dario Franchitti seems to be pulling out of it. I got a feeling that his tire temperatures came up, as did the pressure. The balance is coming back the way he wanted it. Paul Tracy was trying to force something while he had the advantage. Couldn't make it happen, and now Dario is starting to gradually stretch it out. He lapped at a 1:05 second lap that lap, and Paul Tracy at a 1:06.
Bobby Rahal has climbed out of the race that had so much promise when he was the provisional pole sitter on Friday. We're going to leave the air here on ABC Sports at the top of the hour. We will rejoin on ESPN2 after a break. We'll be back with more live from the Grand Prix of Houston here on ABC Sports. Stay with us. Dario Franchitti, Paul Tracy, Alex Zanardi up front. Back live at Houston, Texas, and the Texaco Grand Prix of Houston has been a dramatic event from its tardy start. We began under a rain hold. We've been through a red flag for contact in this corner, and right now Patrick Carpentier, whose teammate Greg Moore is already out of the race, has gone nose first into the tire wall. There is Gilles de Ferran. He too has gone around. We are under a full course caution for the 4th time today. Bob Varsha, Danny Sullivan, Tommy Kendall, Jan Bikus, and Gary Gerould. Glad to have you with us on what has been an extraordinary day. Credit all around for the efforts to get this track dry after a heavy rainstorm swamped it. But they were able to attempt to start the race. Several yellow flags for spins and contact. A red, as I mentioned, for a 6 or 7 car incident in the final corner. But we are back underway. For Gilles de Ferran, the race is over. Keep in mind, at the top of the hour, we will leave ABC Sports and rejoin you on ESPN2. Patrick Carpentier climbs out as well. The kart safety team goes to work. Dario Franchitti leads his teammate Paul Tracy, and they have been dicing nose to tail under heavy skies. It is no longer dripping rain, and all of the top cars are on slick tires. There is Carpentier thinking about what might have been. Let's take another look, Danny Sullivan.
You see him there. This is the turn leading onto the pit straightaway. They'll come from the right of your screen. He's just out there wide. He can't do anything about it. He looked like he just got out wide. I cannot tell you why, and there was nothing he could do.
And so the players team for Jerry Forsyth is now out of the race. And Dario Franchitti remains on the racetrack in the lead following the PPG safety car. A day with a little bit of everything. Now that all of the top cars are on slick tires, they will be hoping that the rain holds up. Otherwise, our story will take another dramatic twist. There is Andre Ribeiro down in turn 5.
Yeah, this is under caution, but the guys are trying to catch back up to the pack, and Ribeiro has been having trouble locking the rear brakes.
In Houston, Texas, live here on ABC Sports, there you see Andre Ribeiro, who has managed to slide off the racetrack under the caution, our 4th full course caution of the day. Bob Varsha, Danny Sullivan, Jan Bikus, Gary Gerould, and Tommy Kendall with you. We are going to be going off the air on ABC. We will resume our race coverage on ESPN2, so be sure to switch over to ESPN2 for more of the inaugural Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. Now let's go to Robin Roberts in our Wide World of Sports studio in New York. Just about 50 miles from the Gulf of Mexico, just by Galveston Bay. Welcome back to Houston, Texas, 4th largest city in America, home to 24 universities and colleges, some of them very well known, a massive medical center, 17 of the Fortune 500 companies, and as of now, a stop on the CART FedEx Championship Series. This is the inaugural Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. We are under yellow for the 5th time today. It has been a logistical nightmare for the teams as they try to second-guess Mother Nature. 3 heavy rain showers before our first attempt to start this race. The 3rd and heaviest absolutely swamped the race course. We had a long rain delay of about 37 minutes before our first attempt to start the race. A massive accident brought out a red flag for about 17 minutes. No injuries. but several damaged race cars. Once again, the green flag waves. We are back underway on lap 47.
Once again, Dario Franchitti makes a very good getaway. Didn't allow his teammate to get too close to him on the restart. Zanardi must have enjoyed that yellow because it closed that gap back down. He wants to hold on to these two, I'm sure, with his new contract. And as he said earlier, he's on the top of the world. He'd love to pull off a nice win here.
Oh, Max Pappas to the right of your screen, getting sideways big time. He runs in 6th place. Just behind him is Adrian Fernandez. But Max Pappas is not going to want to be run down by the Mexican driver. He goes by the lapped car of Alex Barron, the former karting champion, in only his 3rd year of racing full-sized automobiles. Here he is with 850 or so horsepower under his right foot, driving the new Eagle chassis for Dan Gurney's All-American Racers team. Back to the front now. Franchitti with 2 victories on the season. His first career FedEx Championship Series win in the Texaco Havoline 300 at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. And he followed it up immediately with his 2nd win on the streets of Vancouver, British Columbia.
Oh, and look at this. Dennis Vitolo in a bad spot there. Did not move over with the leaders coming on there. Allowed Paul Tracy to close up. Boy, around this place, you've really got to pay attention to those mirrors and get out of the way when the leaders come, especially when you've already spun off and you've dropped down quite a bit.
Our television cameras make it look a good bit lighter than it actually is.
And look at this, Paul Tracy, and they touch. Dario Franchitti and Paul Tracy touch. His left rear of Dario Franchitti hit Paul Tracy's front, and look, he's done. His left front is toast. He must have bumped the wall. Look at that. He's got to be so upset right there. It's over, Paul. You can drive that one right to the pits and get out and go home.
There's wife Lisa, crestfallen. That incident took place right under Tommy Kendall's position.
Paul had been, trying the inside before. Right before that last yellow, he locked up and almost slid into the back of Dario, but got it stopped. Dario went clear. There he was actually up alongside a little ways, not very far. Hit Dario, obviously was trying to get away from him, and it kind of spun himself into the inside wall.
Now the question is, what is the status of that car for Dario Franchitti?
Well, the gap that he's got to the next car on the track, I don't think it affected his at all. And Paul's damage came from the contact and then him bumping the inside wall. See, they touched there, but then Paul slides in, taps the concrete wall right there in front of our own Tommy Kendall, and damages his left front or right front as you're looking at his car. Boom, bangs him there, no big deal. And then he touches that wall, breaks the front suspension.
Yeah, that's a tough move at best. I mean, that's the thing. These cars have gotten so even. But it was kind of a lazy, he didn't make a real strong, bold move, partially because it's slick, but that's one of those things. He didn't make a real deliberate move for Dario to see. He's really fortunate that he didn't take Dario out.
There you see Tracy's car.
Hey guys, there's an altercation down here. There's a fight that has broken out between Barry Green and Paul Tracy. They got into a huge argument. Some words were exchanged. Paul Tracy unhappy, and a very tense moment down here for Team Cool Green.
There's Paul Tracy exiting the back of the Team Cool Green pits. Barry Green is his car owner.
That is not the guy you want to be having an altercation with, is the guy that writes your check and does the hiring and firing. Paul clearly upset there.
And Barry Green no less so. Now, no doubt it was over whether or not Paul Tracy should have made that move on his teammate for the race lead. Keep in mind, Paul Tracy came into this team as the #1 driver. Dario Franchitti was the younger member of the team with only 1 full season under his belt. And yet Franchitti outperformed his teammate, the more experienced man, on several occasions and won 2 races, while Paul has won this year. To Jan Bikas.
Well, to tell you exactly what transpired here in the Team Cool Green pits is that Paul Tracy got out of the car. The PR people came to us immediately and wanted us to stay away from Paul because they knew he was going to be upset. He walked up to Barry Green calmly to talk about it, and then all of a sudden, Paul Tracy was infuriated and shoved his team owner, and Barry Green shoved him back, and you saw what happened after that.
Yeah, and I happened to see at the other end of the pit on the big screen for the racetrack, they had a camera isolated on that. Barry Green was tapping his temple as if to say, Paul, and I don't know what his exact words were, Paul, you must think. About the third time he tapped his head, that's when Tracy got up very aggressively and they were nose to nose.
Well, let me tell you, you can't do this and keep having incidents time after time after time. The team, and with a sponsor like Cool and everybody, needs results. Paul has to deliver. He's been on probation. He's had a bunch of silly accidents this year, and you can't be doing that with your teammate when you're leading 1-2. And Paul got to be very careful there because his job is at stake with a guy like Barry Green and with Cool. You can't behave like that.
Well, more than that, the thing about Barry Green really stands by his drivers. He's going to tell you what he thinks behind the scenes, but earlier this year, he was very firmly behind Paul Tracy. The last guy you want to alienate is the last guy in your camp, and that has been Barry Green at times, not to mention all the other reasons you mentioned.
Well, it should be said that Barry Green has stood by Paul Tracy through all of the contretemps that fell upon him earlier in this season. Barry is an Australian and a very even-tempered man, but once he goes, he goes. There's Mark Blundell going around Vincenzo Sospiri. He's got Adrian Fernandez just behind him. Fernandez runs in 6th place. Blundell is 16th, so that's not a battle for position. See Al Unser Jr. going by. He is trying to run down Fernandez. The red car at the back of your screen, that's Richie Hearn in the Budweiser car. He runs in 7th between Fernandez and Unser Jr., so there are a lot of places at stake right here.
Al Jr. really on the move. To update you guys, the skies have opened up here again pretty heavily. The track is not wet yet, but it will be in a fairly short period. The hardest rain we've had since before the start of the race.
And of course, let's not forget, we had to delay the start of the race because of standing water. If we get a huge downpour, we're past half distance. They can call the race. I'm not saying they will, but they have the opportunity to call a race if the conditions get so bad.
See the oil flag out, the yellow flag with the red stripes to warn the drivers of the traction conditions.
That's right. That's the only flag. They don't have a rain flag. They just have a slick flag. And that's what they're showing to warn them. Because don't forget, a driver can come around one lap, it's dry, comes around the next lap, and it's soaking wet.
Even when it's wet, there's a point where the tires lose their temp, and it's like someone switches a light switch. And we'll see it in a second here. A car will just go straight off into the barriers, and the first guy that happens to, sometimes it happens all over the circuit at once, but even when it's raining on your screen, you still have grip, so you keep going. You might back off a little bit, but when it goes like I said, like someone's shut a switch off.
And unfortunately, Tommy, that's oftentimes when the officials will go, oh, it's too slick out on the track, we better slow everything down or put a red out. Unfortunately, if you're the person that went off, not a very good end to your day.
Watching Al Unser Jr., who has gotten around Richie Hearn for 7th place. There is Adrian Fernandez in the yellow and green car just ahead. Unser Jr. moving very quickly. He set some of the fastest laps of the race thus far. He is trying to run down Fernandez, and he is making headway, as is Alex Zanardi, who was closed up to within 3 seconds of our race leader, Dario Franchitti. Mark Blundell, the first of the drivers to switch from the wet weather grooved rubber to the slick tires, but he may have done it just too soon, and he has too much ground to make up.
Yeah, Blundell's a lap down. He has not really pulled over, and he did for Al Jr. right there, but he's been racing these guys pretty hard. I had to check the monitor to make sure he was a lap down.
And of course, it's very tough around here when you're trying to go fast just to move over for guys and do it in a good way so that you don't lose too much ground. And I'm sure Jimmy Vasser would like to see Al Unser Jr. pass Adrian Fernandez, put him another spot down, and give Jimmy a few more points.
Jimmy Vasser currently stands in 2nd place in the championship to his teammate Alex Zanardi. Adrian Fernandez is 3rd, just 10 behind Vasser. Dario Franchitti, the race leader, whose 2 victories rocketed him into contention, is 4th in the championship.
And Al Unser Jr. trying very hard, 2 corners, locked up the front tires. Look at him, he's throwing that car around. Great drive here, but he's driving very hard. Adrian Fernandez is taking a little bit, pulling a little gap on Al Jr. there.
So the point is, this is not just for positions on the racetrack. It could be for positions in the championship. Keep in mind, $1.7 million in championship points fund money still at stake, including second place money, $500,000. Meanwhile, Alex Zanardi continues to take huge chunks off the race leader's gap. Dario Franchitti now just 1.8 seconds ahead of the second place car. So Alex Zanardi has taken a 4-second lead and cut it in half in 5 laps.
So the question is, did that contact with Paul Tracy actually affect the handling on Dario Franchitti's car, or is Zanardi's car just coming to life as the track dries?
There are the numbers on Al Unser Jr. as he has marched through this field. That's Robbie Gordon just ahead. Gordon shown in 13th place, so he's not a part of that battle. Here comes Fernandez and Unser Jr. and Richie Hearn, who are going for position.
And this is where it becomes so critical when you're racing a guy for a spot and then you have traffic to contend with in front of you. You have to be playing a very clever chess game, because you got to be looking forward, taking a look at trying to get an opportunity to pass, and make sure you're protecting your backside against somebody like Al Unser Jr., who will take advantage of your mistake.
Robbie Gordon in the Reynard with Toyota power. Behind him, Fernandez, Reynard with a Ford engine. Then Al Unser Jr. in the Penske Mercedes, and Richie Hearn in the Swift Ford. 4 different chassis and engine combinations.
Dario has answered back. I don't know if he's controlling the gap, but now it's back up to 2.6 seconds. After a few laps, we'll be able to tell. Sometimes you let the guy get close, it kind of wakes you up. You run another couple hard laps to make sure you still got the edge. No sense really checking out 8-10 seconds when, as long as you know you have the measure of the guy behind.
Fernandez now right up on Robbie Gordon's gearbox. And if he can put Gordon behind him, but still ahead of Al Unser Jr., that's what he does. Now Al Unser Jr. will have to deal with Robbie Gordon as Fernandez tries to make his getaway. Umbrellas going up in the grandstand just across from our announce position. For the last 2 days, they have been parasols as they try to avoid the bright sunshine here in Houston. Today, they are parapluies, avoiding the rain. Up ahead of Robbie Gordon, his teammate for Archie Wells Racing, Max Pappas, who was another of the early cars to go to slicks, has put Toyota into the number 5 spot in the running order, and that's the highest they have ever run in the Kart FedEx Championship Series. Pappas had the car in 4th position after provisional qualifying on Friday, so the Italian, who will move to Bobby Rahall's team in Rahall's seat next year, has done very well in his first visit to Houston this weekend.
We've been talking about Toyota power all season long. Down that long straightaway, Robbie Gordon certainly didn't lose any ground to Al Unser Jr. Al tried to pass him at the end of the straightaway, but he didn't have enough to get by.
Dario Franchitti continues to draw away from Alex Zanardi as we watch this battle at mid-pack. He is now almost 4 seconds ahead of the second place car again. So as Tommy Kendall mentioned, Franchitti appears to be controlling the pace. These folks can see themselves on the big screen monitors placed around the racetrack, and they come to their feet to say hello to you from Houston.
Who do you think they were pulling for?
Oh, you probably. To Gary Gerould.
Let's take a look at possible pit strategy down the road here. Bob, we're down to somewhere under 40 minutes on a timed race yet to go, and under the threat of rain. So we've been asking crew chiefs here, if in fact the race continues to its full 2-hour time limit at this pace, will you have to make another pit stop? The general consensus seems to be yes. Now, if it continues to rain and it slows the pace down, that's subject to change. And as you've already speculated, if the skies really open up, since we're past the halfway point, I think there's no question they might well checker this event. Jan?
And Gary, the situation for leader Dario Franchitti, they figure they can go about 20 more laps on the fuel that they have. But consider what must be going through Barry Green's mind, because he owns this team for both Paul Tracy and Dario Franchitti. He loves Paul Tracy. He always speaks positively, and he's just gotten an altercation with him. But at the same time he has those emotions, he's watching the screen, and he has a car in the lead of this race. Now, Barry has declined to talk to us. He wants to gather his emotions. Obviously, that was a very difficult moment for him. If he does decide to talk, we'll be sure that we do.
There is a lot at stake in racing, particularly here today. Barry Green has seen championship days in the past. He wants to see them again.
And let's not forget something from Barry Green's point of view. He's got a car running first and second. I'm sure he'd like to see Paul get on the winner's board, on the winner's podium, and post one like Dario Franchitti. But his main objective as a team owner and is to satisfy his sponsor's goal is to put both those guys up on the podium in whatever order that he can.
There's Dario Franchitti behind the bright yellow Lola from Gerald Davis Racing. That is the home team. Davis brought up the assets of the team formerly owned by Jim Hall, and they are based in Midland, Texas. So they carry the Texas flag on their rear wing end plates. You saw Tony Kanaan go by. Jimmy Vasser in 4th place. Here comes Max Pappas having that great run in 5th spot for Archiero Wells Racing. The MCI Reynard with Toyota Power and Firestone tires.
Give a call to Alex Barron too. He's a lap down, but he has been about this distance behind Max for about the past 10 laps. So whatever put them a lap down, he is running just as well. I'm sure they'll project wherever Max finishes onto them and say, well, a little bit fewer different breaks, we could have been there right there with them.
It was ever thus in racing. Alex Barron currently shown in 12th, so he could pick up a championship point if he can remain in that position. Saw the Lola of Arndt Meyer. He runs in 16th place out of the points. It's a good look at Max Pappas, the Italian who works with a guru, if you will, Dr. Enrico Arcelli back in Italy. A very popular published author on the subjects of nutrition and energy, personal motivation, and so forth.
Bob, it is definitely raining harder now, and much harder than it has for the last hour or so. And I think it's getting to the point, if this continues only more than a couple of minutes, you're going to start seeing cars slipping and sliding out there on those slick tires.
And of course, one thing, the track has to get a little bit slipperier. There's a lot of heat in there right now in those tires. They'll continue to get grip. But the minute it fills that surface, look out. And did we just see some lightning coming?
We had a flash of lightning overhead, very definitely, as you check the running order with 61 laps in the book.
Either that or the entire grandstand flashed their cameras at the same time.
Believe me, guys, it was lightning, and we heard the accompanying thunder just moments ago as well.
And another peal of thunder. Earlier today, we were under a tornado warning with twisters reported in the area, but not near enough to affect the running of this race.
Keep an eye on Alex Zanardi if you can, and Jimmy Vasser, because they're both laid out with rain tires. They're going to make the change right away.
Look at Tony Kanaan driving the LCI car for Steve Horn and Tasman Motorsports. Up front, Dario Franchitti has laid down a lap at 64.2 seconds. 4 seconds quicker than that man, Alex Zanardi, whose last lap was a 68.1.
That 68 was primarily, he came up on a battle between Andre Ribeiro and Arndt Meyer and got stuck behind him. Big break for Dario, but that's not really indicative. He's not that far off the pace.
No, but you'll take those gaps anytime you can.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, when you're talking about fuel economy and how far you can go before you have to pit, remember that when you lean down the engine, that it makes it run hotter. So a lot of people were saying if it was going to be as hot as forecasted, you couldn't run as lean. Now it's much cooler. They can run the engines as lean as they want.
And Jan, at the other end of the pits, both Vasser and Zanardi crews have come back to the wall after having the hoses and the rain tires laid out. So they're on hold once again, but there's been no let up here in the amount of moisture coming out of the skies. It is raining harder almost by the moment.
And don't forget, sometimes teams will do that as a little ploy to fake the other people out. So they decide, oh, those guys are going to come into the pits. Let's jump into the pits as well. The key is to watch the tires. Watch the tires. If you see them starting to get slick, shiny colored, then you know the track is too wet.
There's the third place car taking a big slide. Tony Kanaan, Jan Beekes.
Yes, and he was the first one where the crew jumped over the wall getting ready for his pit stop. And just ahead of him, Dario Franchitti has laid out his rain tires as well. Now, does this mean that Tony Kanaan did not decide to come in this time, or have they set up early?
Well, he didn't pit this time because he's gone past the pits. They're showing an oil flag. He squeezes inside. His fellow countryman, Andre Ribeiro, squirms out of the corner. You can see the tires are starting to get a little slicker looking, a little bit more shine.
And now it begins to rain heavier still as you see Dario Franchitti slipping and sliding, leaving tracks behind the car on what has suddenly become a hockey rink.
That moment where I said where it's like someone shuts the grip off of the light switch, that has happened. So I imagine Dario will be in this time.
He has just a couple of corners to reach the pit in.
And it's so critical where you are on the track when those rains come down and make it too slick. Dario is 3 corners from home. A lot going his way today.
And he locks up the tires momentarily when he brings it in because it's much slicker here than what it is on the racetrack. The crew just has to try and take their time. Look how dark it is. You see those flames coming out of the exhaust. That shows you there's not a lot of light here. Kind of a slow stop, but he is underway with rain tires.
You think that crew has a lot of confidence in there? They just stand right there as he spins his tires and goes out.
And now it's Alex Zanardi's crew's turn to go to work. The rain tires goes on. There goes Dario Franchitti by. Waiting and watching. Major wing change on the left side, and Zanardi rolls.
He'll have to be careful. Lots of cars coming into the pits now. There's Jimmy Vasser at the back. Here comes Scott Pruitt on his way out as the storm continues to build. Another huge peal of thunder over Houston, Texas, as the race begins to build to a climax.
And Vasser is away cleanly, and he is back on the wet tires.
That phenomenon of getting heat in the tires applies to rain tires as well. Obviously, when it's real wet, you won't get a lot of temperature, but when they're stone cold, they're not near their optimum, even as rain tires.
And of course, they're going to want to watch all those little manhole covers again. Look at that, it's starting to come down. Tommy, here comes Zanardi coming down your direction, and it is teeming down.
Tell you what, Franchitti is still pushing, even though he's got like a 10 or 11 second lead now, he's still really pushing the gap, taking chances. And Alex coming through a lot more sedately than Dario Franchitti.
More lightning from overhead.
And one thing will happen if there's a lot of lightning. Forget about what's going on the track. The officials might decide they need to call this because of the communication. All the corner workers standing out there around lightning with headsets on, standing in wet conditions. They are not going to take a chance with the officials.
More cars coming in. That's Art Meyer at the back of the field for Davis Racing. As you watch, race leader Dario Franchitti, 16 of 17 cars have now pitted for rain tires.
And these fans are amazing. Some of them are leaving because of the lightning, but there's a lot of people still sitting in the stands.
The one driver who has not pitted for treaded wet weather rubber yet, the first man to go on slicks, Mark Blundell, currently 13th. Just outside the points. That may be his gamble. Try to stay on the racetrack, try to get into the points and then stay there, chancing perhaps that they will checker this race.
Exactly. He's hoping right now that they call it, but look, he can't take it anymore. He's coming in the pits, went in way deep there, almost missed turning into the pits. That was close.
And look how even the slick tires, the untreaded tires, throw up huge rooster tails at just 60 miles an hour.
He's not going 60 miles right there.
Exactly.
He's creeping into his pit right there. He was not going to take a chance at all. This man has been phenomenal. Look at him sliding around.
The submarine races have broken out in earnest here on the streets of Houston. Remarkable, after 3 days of great weather, we had late showers on Friday and Saturday. And then this morning, 3 heavy downpours. This is now the 4th. And we have solid overcast, no visibility on the horizon whatever, as Dario Franchitti closes up on J.J. Leto of Finland. Another great wet weather driver, and when these guys struggle, you can imagine just how diabolical the conditions are. Look at them, twin spins right there under acceleration. And now the visibility is completely obscured Dario Franchitti is going to have to be very careful here as the yellow flags finally come out. A full course caution here, our 6th of the day. And not a moment too soon for that man, Dario Franchitti. J.J. Leto runs 10th, so he too is in the points. Look at the rain just pouring down. As hard as we've seen it all day.
Bob, I think down here in Texas they call them frog stranglers.
I'll bet they do. Just your typical summer weather. Well, I guess it's autumn now, isn't it?
It sure felt like summer all weekend down here.
Temperatures in the 90s. The background, you may have caught a glimpse of some cranes standing against the clouds. That is where the Houston Astros will have a new baseball home within a few years. A retractable dome stadium, we are told. Congratulations to the Astros on winning last night in the National League divisional playoffs. They now have a 2-1 lead over San Diego. Excuse me, they lost last night, did they not? San Diego has the 2-1 lead. Congratulations to the Astros just for being there.
They'd be happy if you give them that win, but
there goes my baseball announcing career. Huh? I'll leave it up to John Miller.
Now you look how bad those conditions are. Look at the spray just there. Imagine what that's like if you're behind a couple of those cars.
Well, we are fairly warm and dry here in our announce position. I hope the guys in the pit lane are out of harm's way. However, we do have an announcer out there on the race course. How are the conditions, Tommy?
Well, I had to abandon my chair here, so I'll get a little wet. I'm wet from about the waist down. Thanks, guys. That's a real nice shot. Appreciate that.
Well, at the top of our show on ABC Sports, you did say that after spending some time in the booth, you wanted to get back on the racetrack, so there you go.
Like I said, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Careful what you wish for.
Tommy, do you think it's a good call? You're out there. You can see the conditions. Do you think it was a good call for them to go to full course yellow?
I do. I mean, I always have mixed feelings about that because, you know, that's part of the challenge of this, the changing conditions, the guys who are willing to take the chances. Having said that, when you get standing water, it's not suitable for racing. I don't see a lot of standing water yet. There's a lot of water in the air, but I'm sure most of the drivers would concur. Dario would definitely concur. He can't lose his lead now, but it was probably a wise move.
Well, Dario, of course, he's puddling through some, or splashing through some puddles. As we see, I think it was probably a very good call. I know as a driver, you always wanted to, you know, just win this way, you know, the best way you could.
Now we expect the white flag, we are told by kart officials. 1 lap to go here in Houston. The conditions will just not bear more. We are 94 minutes plus into this race. 31 laps remain. But with lightning and thunder overhead and a threat of more severe weather to come, officials have decided to call this an official race. And it will be the 3rd career win and 3rd of the season for the new Flying Scot, Dario Franchitti. Behind him, Alex Zanardi, who has reset the record for podium finishes. He was second to Brian Herta at Laguna Seca 3 weeks ago. That was his 12th podium finish, a top 3 finish, his 12th in 16 races. Today will make it 13 in 17 races, and that is a new mark, breaking the record of 11 co-held by Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., and Michael Andretti.
I'd like to really give a call to Dario Franchitti in how seasoned he's become in a year. A year ago at Elkhart Lake, he crashed under yellow in the rain. I talked about him last night. He said, I love your announcing, but I didn't like when you ragged on me at Elkhart Lake. I said, you crashed under yellow. What do you want me to say? And he said, you're right. And this shows that, I mean, with everything crumbling around him, WWF action in the pit lane, his teammate bouncing off him, nothing unflappable. Very, very cool customer, terrible condition, brilliant win.
But not a very good card player, according to his teammates.
And Tommy, that sounds like a huge amount of groveling that you're doing after throwing him under the bus last year at Elkhart Lake.
What do you mean? When you crash under yellow, that's hard to explain.
This is
absolutely
true. But he has done a brilliant job under very, very tough conditions. Wet, dry, wet. Again, everything going on. What a great drive.
I did ask him if he had spent any of that bonus money from Elkhart Lake or from Vancouver.
A huge splash as he makes his way through the final puddle and waddles down the front straightaway after a dramatic inaugural Texaco Grand Prix of Houston. Fists in the air for Dario Franchitti as he accepts the checkered flag. To Jan Beekes.
And Barry Green accepts the congratulations. We're going to try and get in here underneath the umbrella. He did say that he would speak with us if they did win, and they have now won. Barry, a very emotional day for you, an altercation with Paul, but now a victory. What happened with Paul?
Well, I mean, it's just great to see the two of them run up front like that. You know, Paul got together with Dario, unfortunately, but he was very fast, and it's just great to see him qualify up front. But look at Dario. The guy's fantastic. Drove a great race, used his head in these conditions, tough conditions today, and both of them are doing a great job up to that point.
But I know emotionally, I know that this has been a very hard day for you because you and Paul have a special relationship, and something came unglued there.
Oh, we have a great relationship, and we'll continue that relationship. But any more words on that front, really, I've got to talk to Paul about. You know, he did a great job in qualifying this weekend and did a great job up to that point. And, you know, just great team effort this weekend in tough conditions.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job, boys.
Congratulations indeed to Barry Green. There is Tony Kanaan, who picks up third place, his second straight podium finish, and with it, he clinches the Rookie of the Year award. The Jim Truman Trophy will go to Tony Kanaan, a former champion in the PPG Dayton Indy Light Series as well. There is the man of the hour, however, Dario Franchitti. Daring Dario accepting the congratulations of the corner workers. Now, despite the fact that you see these folks moving around, there is still heavy lightning, and it is because of that CART officials have chosen to checker this race. It will go into the books as an official race. Third win of the year for Dario Franchitti, who is making his mark with every stop on the CART FedEx Championship Series this year. Now, they will stop him in the pits. We hope to get a word from him. It certainly has been a day fraught with danger for him. And perhaps he will be able to share some thoughts on the collision with his teammate Paul Tracy that led to such a fuss. He makes the pit entrance.
I'd be willing to bet they've already discussed that on the radio, and I would imagine he'll be mum on that event. They'll all get together and regroup. And Gary Gerald down there in the pit lane.
Danny down here where it is just pouring down rain, but I'll tell you, nobody in the immediate vicinity here cares a lick as Franchitti gets congratulations for his third victory, and he will come up out of the seat and acknowledge his team and those who have weathered this remarkable day in Texas. As soon as Dario, we'll get a word over here, Kim Green on this side with him. He'll pull that helmet off and we'll be able to get his read on this unusual day. Dario, who broke through, of course, at Elkhart, followed it up in Vancouver. Here he is now. Dario, such a remarkable day with all of the different considerations, the weather among others, and of course the wheel-to-wheel confrontation with your own teammate Paul Tracy. Yeah. Tell me about that from your seat, what happened when Paul challenged for the lead.
Oh, it's raining at the moment. I didn't see Paul. The next thing I saw was I felt something behind me. I don't know what happened. I'll have to watch it on video.
Did you know it was Paul at that point?
Yeah, I could see Paul. Paul was pretty close. But you know, wasn't really the place to challenge, but I don't know what happened. Maybe he missed his break and it was really tricky out there, but I'll talk to him about it, and I'm delighted. A really difficult race with all the conditions and stuff. And
well, tell me about how hard it was to find that delicate balance before you were able to go from the wet tires to the slick tires and then have to go back to the rains at the end.
No, the biggest problem was, at first it was like an ice rink out there, the new surface, and it's really slippy, and I was just all the time just really crawling around, but I was pulling away at quite a rate, so I was pretty happy. Then we came in for the slicks, and that was another thing. I had to really up the game, get used to a new level of grip there. Some places it was gripping, some places it wasn't. Once we got used to that, the rain came back on, and...
Any close calls while you were fighting all of those conditions?
Not really. I think the only close call was really when Paul and myself touched, and that was it. But just trying to keep it on the island all day. The guys at Team Cole Green gave me a great car, and in wet and dry conditions, we were the quickest, and that makes me very happy.
I should well suspect. Great job.
Thank you.
Jan?
And Gary, get this. When Alex Zanardi pulled in here into Victory Circle, someone came up and offered you a glass of water. He said, no, thank you. I've had plenty of water today already. That was unbelievable conditions.
Yeah, it was very difficult at the end. I think the stewards took the right decision by finishing the race because it was simply too dangerous. Although It's a little bitter because, you know, I mean, as long the race would have gone, as more opportunity I would have got to get Dario. But hey, great credit to him because it was running very well today.
Did you have anything for him? Did you think that there was a place on the track you might have an advantage?
Whenever the situation was changing, I was calling him, but then he would understand what to do and he would pull away again. I think no, I'm obviously glad with the job that the boys did, and I wanted to pit the previous lap to put rain tires on, and I knew that was going to be a gambling, but I thought the rain was going to come big. And probably if I would have done that, I would have got him, but I would have just been lucky, not probably deserved to win. So I'm happy anyway.
Congratulations. We'll see you in Australia.
Thank you.
Congratulations indeed to Alex Zanardi. Here's a look at the final results. Dario Franchitti picks up another victory and with it moves up in the championship standings. For his part, Alex Zanardi has now set a new kart championship record for points scored in a 17-race season. But this season is far from over. Tony Kanaan, your Rookie of the Year, the Jim Truman Award winner, picks up his second straight podium. Good run for Al Unser Jr. For Brian Herta, who was hoping to make it 2 in a row. He will not do so. The second place, the victory by Dario Franchitti means that Honda has clinched the Kart Engine Manufacturers Award for 1998. Now let's get down to Gary Gerould.
Well, the highest finish ever, I believe, for a Toyota power plant in the Champ Car Series for the Kart FedEx Series. Max Pappas, you've got to feel like you've put in more than a day's work. Tell us about your ride to get the 5th today.
You believe it, right? You know, today's fantastic. You know, 5th is the best I ever finished. Thanks to the guys. I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud.
He's not Italian, is he?
Oh, he did such a great job. He always does, Gary. He gives us 100% every single time. We're very proud of him. He did awesome today.
That's Richard Buck we're hearing from. Max, now tell us about this ongoing development program and where you think you are 2 races now from the end of a 1998 season that started way back in March on the other side of the country.
I tell you, the development is getting really well. The MCI Toyota car is running so strong all the time. And thanks to the effort that all my guys put together, and Watt is giving me a fantastic job, and Richard here is doing fantastic. You know, I tell you, I am the happiest man in the world. And, you know, yesterday was my birthday, and you know, hi everybody home.
Didn't realize it was your birthday. Now, of course, you're making a change with teams next year. How much are you going to be missing these guys who've helped you so far and to make this progress this year?
Let me enjoy this moment, and I'm so happy. I'm so proud for all my guys. You know, I tell you, you know, I wish them all the luck in the world.
Enjoy it. Great job, Max Pappas. Man, it's just oozing out of every pore in his body.
Here are the manufacturers' standings after 17 of 19 races. Honda unassailable, and they will pick up the manufacturers' championship trophy when it is awarded at the season-ending banquet in Los Angeles, California in November. In the Rookie of the Year, Tony Kanaan, your champion, after beating out Helio Castroneves, whom he beat, who was his teammate last year for Steve Horn in the Tasman Motorsports Group. But Kanaan beat Castroneves for the Indy Lights Championship, and now he beats him for Rookie of the Year as well. But keep in mind that $500,000 to our runner-up in the championship and that total pool of $1.75 million in bonus money is still out there. And we still have 2 races to go. We'll be in Surfers Paradise, Australia in a couple of weeks, and then back home on to the broad stretches of the Super Speedway, the California Speedway, for a 500-miler that will award $1 million to the race winner. They say everything's big in Texas, and it is a big event, big weather, big crashes, and a race so big it took 2 networks to cover it. We'll be coming to you from Surfers Paradise, Australia on ESPN Sunday, October 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, the Championship Series 500 from the California Speedway, Sunday, November 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Ready to ship out to Australia, Danny Sullivan?
I am, but what a tremendous day. What an excitement. Showed the true champions, Franchitti, Zanardi, great job. Tony Kanaan and Jimmy Vasser did what he had to do to stretch out that point lead a little bit more and try to secure second in the championship.
2 chapters remain in our FedEx Championship Series saga for 1998, but that man, Dario Franchitti, has already made his mark. I'm Bob Varsha for Danny Sullivan, Jan Beekes, Tommy Kendall, and Gary Gerould. So long from Houston, Texas. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.